I declare this meeting open at 7 p.m. and welcome everyone to this public meeting. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend this respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person here this evening. It is our prayer that as elected representatives we speak respectfully and consider the needs of all current and future residents, as well as the impacts on the environment in which we live. Tonight, I would appreciate it if everyone present in this room allows us to make decisions free of interjections so that we can make the best possible decisions for the community. In particular, I would like to call out a few rules and expectations. 1, we will have one person speaking at a time. 2, the public has the right to attend this meeting as an observer. However, members of the public gallery are to observe in silence so as to allow the councillors to focus on decision making. 3, as per clause 5.31 of the Code of Meeting Practice, this council meeting is being recorded and it is being made available live by the council website. Only councillors and staff will be shown on camera. 4, Clause 2.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice outlines a principle for all meeting attendees to treat each other with respect and to behave in a way that contributes to the orderly conduct of the meeting. 5, if any councillor would like to raise a point of order as per Clause 15.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice, I ask that they turn on their mic and say point of order. I will then pause the timer and allow the councillor to raise their concern before I rule on whether it is a valid point of order. And 6, council may close part of the meeting to deal with certain confidential matters in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act. Now, we're up to apologies. There are no councillor apologies. Are there any staff apologies?
Mr. Mayor, there are no staff apologies.
Okay, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest by councillors? So first up, we've got Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 potential perceived conflicts of interest. Both of them are insignificant and non-pecuniary. For GB3, I'm a paying member of Ku-ring-gai Rotary and president of the satellite club Ku-ring-gai Rotary Community Network. For GB4, I volunteer at an organisation that was managed for a while by one of the candidates for the Women's Committee. As both of these potential perceived conflicts are insignificant and non-pecuniary, I'll be staying in chambers for consideration of these items.
Councillor Simon Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I declare an interest in item GB1 as per the minutes of the Heritage Reference Committee meeting that is recorded there. I sit as councillor's nominee on the Orderly Trust, and since the item leads to issuance of grants, I declare an immaterial non-pecuniary interest in item GB1.
Councillor Kay.
I would like to declare a non-pecuniary non-significant for GB3, which is the Ku-ring-gai Council sponsorship in relation to the St Ives Food and Wine. I have previously sat on that committee through the St Ives Rotary, but I will be leaving the chambers when it comes to vote. Thank you.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a non-pecuniary interest in GB3 for the Rotary Clubs.
So, non-significant.
I will be staying in chambers.
You'll be staying in chambers, all right. And then as for myself, with GB1, the Heritage Home Grants, I'll declare an insignificant non-pecuniary interest because I happen to know one of the people who applied for the grant, and that person helped me 3 years ago in an election. But to play it safe, I will step out of the room for GB1. And then as for GB3, I know one of the applicants was Ku-ring-gai Rotary, and I was made an honorary member without being asked about it a few weeks ago. So I will say that one's insignificant and non-pecuniary, and I will be staying in the room for GB3 because I have no influence over their decision making. So that's disclosures by councillors. Disclosures by staff.
Mr. Mayor, there are no declarations from staff.
Are there any documents circulated in
Sorry.
the council? Oh, Councillor Spencer.
Yes, it's a point of order or procedural question. So, attachment 17, Marion Street Theatre for Young People. Marion Street Theatre for Young People. I believe at the beginning of this term, one of our councillors declared a conflict because the councillor was a member of the fundraising committee. I was wondering if, why during this same term, this conflict no longer exists. Thank you.
Okay, so just as an upfront for all people watching, clause 16.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice says that all councillors and, where applicable, all other persons must declare and manage any conflicts of interest that they may have. So it is up to people to disclose or decide whether or not they have a conflict, and then to disclose whether or not they have a conflict. Now, I understand this is aimed at one particular councillor. Would that councillor like to speak to this? Councillor Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I apologise for not declaring, but I have not been a member of that committee for now over 2 years, so I did not declare an interest in it because I have no involvement at all.
All right, so thank you for that. Okay, moving on. Are there any documents circulated in the councillors' papers to be dealt with at the appropriate time during the meeting?
There are, Mr. Mayor. There are 3 documents under the green. Firstly, a memo dated 15 July 2024, which are responses to questions taken on notice, which were asked by Councillor Kay at the 18 June ordinary meeting. The second document is a memo dated 16 July 2024 regarding the LG New South Wales annual conference call for motions. The third document is a memo dated 16 July 2024 regarding the status of Women's Advisory Committee. There is also a late agenda which was published yesterday, Monday the 15th of July, containing 2 mayoral minutes. Mayoral Minute 2 is titled Significant Sporting Achievements by Members of the Ku-ring-gai Community, and Mayoral Minute 3 is titled Housing Policy Updates July 2024.
Okay, and are there any reports to be considered in a closed meeting and not released to the press and public?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. In relation to GB2, panel of Code of Conduct reviewers, there are attachments 1 through to 11. For GB3 Ku-ring-gai Council sponsorships, there are attachments 1 through 19. And for GB4, Status of Women's Advisory Committee, there are attachments 1, 2 and 3.
Okay, I seek a motion for these reports to remain confidential. So moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, and now can we get a motion to confirm the minutes of the previous meetings held on the 4th of June 2024 and 18th of June 2024? Moved by Councillor Wheatley, seconded by Councillor Lennon. All those in favour? That is unanimous. All right, so we are now up to mayoral minutes. The first one is mayoral minute 1, Valet Don Brew. It is my sad duty to inform my council colleagues and the Ku-ring-gai community of the passing of Don Brew, a notable campaigner for the protection of local heritage and environment. Don Brew was born in 1935 and was a lifelong resident of Ku-ring-gai, residing for over 30 years in Wahroonga with wife Desley. Following his retirement as a professional engineer, Don became interested in the conservation of Ku-ring-gai's built and environmental heritage. He was a notable member of grassroots community organisations such as the Burns, Braeside and Kintori Avenues Wahroonga Group, the North Turramurra Action Group, and the West Pymble Action Group. Don Brew helped set up the Ku-ring-gai Community Shed as a way of getting male residents engaged with each other and the local community through woodworking and other hands-on projects. He was also a long-standing member of the Friends of Ku-ring-gai Environment, Inc. During the late 1990s, Don provided valuable input to help develop the Ku-ring-gai Council Residential Development Local Environment Plan between 1999 and 2001. As president of BBK between 2000 and 2005, Don became a passionate advocate for preserving Wurrunga's heritage. His advocacy helped the council create the Wurrunga Heritage Conservation Area. This meant legal protections of heritage items such as Craignairns by architect Howard Joseland on the corner of Burns Road and Cleveland Street, Wurrunga. Craignairn faced multiple development proposals, including a proposal for 21 apartments. In 2002, Ku-ring-gai Council took on a legal challenge at the Land and Environment Court to protect the property and won. Don also led the BBK campaign to protect endangered blue gum high forest contained within the grounds of the heritage property of Ripon Grange, designed by renowned architect John Solman and Howard Joseland. Other campaigns Don was involved in were to protect the Holy Cross site in Burns Road, Wurrunga, 14 to 18 Coonabarra Road, Wurrunga, and heritage homes along the Pacific Highway at Wurrunga. In 2011, Don Brew founded another community group called Building a Better Ku-ring-gai. He was a strong supporter of Friends of Turramurra legal challenge in the same year against the New South Wales Planning Minister's Ku-ring-gai Planning Panel's proposal to rezone Ku-ring-gai. Ultimately, the state government withdrew this plan. Don Brew will be remembered by those who knew him as a fearless and dedicated campaigner against what he perceived to be inappropriate development in Ku-ring-gai. On behalf of Council and the Ku-ring-gai community, we extend our deepest sympathies to his family and friends. So the recommendation here is that A, that the Mayoral minute be received and noted, B, that we stand for a minute's silence to honour Don Brew, and C, that the Mayor write to Don Brew's family and encloses a copy of the Mayoral minute. Do we have any speakers for this motion? Councillor Smith.
Mr. Mayor, I did have the opportunity to meet Don Brew. He was what you describe as a very positive man. He stood high in stature and he stood high in reputation. I actually met him at the time when he was actually looking at getting Councillor Duncan MacDonald elected to this council in actual fact. So he's very proactive in making sure that we've got the right type of representation on this council. It's unfortunate that over time we are losing people like this that have made such a difference to Ku-ring-gai, and what we've been left with is because of people like this, and there's fewer and fewer of these people around. As far as your comment in regards to fearless, he was fearless, he was very strong, he was passionate, and he knew how to engage. For those reasons, I think that we do owe a lot to Don Brew. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? If not, let's put this to a vote. So all those in favour? That is unanimous. Let's stand for 1 minute's silence. Next up is Mayoral Minute 2, Significant Sporting Achievements by Members of the Ku-ring-gai Community. I'm pleased to report on 2 significant sporting achievements by young Ku-ring-gai community members. So the first is Travis Bazana. Travis Bazana grew up in the Ku-ring-gai area, graduating from Turramurra High School in 2020. As a junior, Travis was a keen sportsman, including playing baseball for the Ku-ring-gai Steelers and Ryde Hawks. He also excelled in other sports, including cricket, basketball, and rugby. Travis has spoken about how much he enjoyed growing up in the Ku-ring-gai LGA. Soon after leaving high school, Travis moved to the United States to pursue a career as a professional baseball player. He's played 2 seasons with Oregon State University in 2022 and 2023. In 2023, Travis had the team's best batting average, securing 20 double runs and 11 home runs, while also setting a team record of 36 stolen bases. In June 2024, Travis was placed at the top of the Major League Baseball MLB draft, which means he was considered the most valuable prospect for major league teams. I'm happy to report that yesterday, Travis was selected as a first draft pick by the Cleveland Guardians MLB team. This means Travis is now one step closer to reaching his dream of playing in the world's premier baseball competition. It also means he is the first Australian-born player to be drafted in the opening round of an MLB draft. Matt Hunt. Last week, the CEO of Athletics New South Wales informed us that Matt Hunt of Roseville will represent Australia in the 400-metre hurdles at the 2024 World Athletics Under-20s Championships in Lima, Peru, from 27th to 31st of August 2024. Matt is a member of the UTS Northern Suburbs Athletic Club. Athletics New South Wales let us know that Matt has worked incredibly hard to be selected for this team through countless hours of training and attending competitions around the country. It is also pleasing to note the ongoing support from the athletics and local community for Matt and his family, contributing to the required $6,000 team levy in order for him to represent his country on the international stage. So here we have a recommendation. I move that this council congratulates Travis Bazana, his family, Turramurra High School and the Ku-ring-gai Steelers Baseball Club for the tremendous achievements of Travis being selected to play in the United States MLB competition. B. Formally responds to the letter from Athletics New South Wales congratulating Matt Hunt on his selection in the Australian team at the 2024 World Athletics Under-20s Championship. And C. Promotes the achievement of both athletes on Council's social media and communication channels. So we're open to any speakers. We've got Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a privilege to be asked to attend the Steelers function yesterday morning, which they had there to see the MLB draft. So the Ku-ring-gai Steelers is also baseball and softball, and we probably had well over 100 people there in attendance, and it was from 7 o'clock in the morning. And it was great to see multiple past presidents, kids, both boys and girls, representing the baseball club and also the softball club. Now Travis, I first met him probably when he was about 10 or 11 years old, and I got to umpiring, and he'd actually come back from representing Australia at the Little League World Series over in the States. And at that point in time, I could tell by his maturity and his way he held himself that this kid was going to go a long way. He was extremely mature, professional, he respected the umpires, he didn't question them. He was far more mature than his very tender age. I also had an opportunity to umpire Travis as he then grew up playing grade within the Sydney competitions. And again, that maturity shone through. Even as a teenager, professional, well respected with his peers and also against the oppositions that he played for. Now he's only just 22. He has a wonderful opportunity ahead of him. to be the first Australian to be selected #1 draft pick is beyond belief. When you consider how many colleges there are in the States, how many thousands of players are playing at college level and also at high school level. Now, Australia has a rich vein of participants that have gone on to play in the major leagues. It is extremely difficult for an Australian to become a position player and play in a major league team. We have a number of pitchers that have gone across, position players. When I mean that, it means infield or outfield. Remember, you're competing against players from other countries where it is their national sport, like Japan, like Korea, like Mexico, Venezuela, Cuba, the list goes on. So we do tend to punch above our weights. Now with Travis and the Ku-ring-gai Steelers, kudos goes to council staff. We have invested a lot of money in that particular location up at Golden Jubilee. We were there, we switched on the lights. I was there with Mayor Anderson when we did that. We've upgraded the playing fields there, resurfaced it, drainage. Again, what we did down at Aluba for the Kissing Point Baseball Club. So by investing in good facilities, we actually give our children the best opportunity to excel in their chosen sport. We do sometimes get lectured here that we don't spend enough on our sporting fields. Well, I think that's nonsense. I think we need to be spending more. We've actually got a motion there later in the evening talking about improved sun protection at our sporting facilities. So again, council should be proud of what we've done to improve those sporting facilities, and this is just one example of what can happen when you invest in our youth. You see it through the Matildas by building better facilities. We've seen that Golden Jubilee is a purpose-built baseball centre with multiple diamonds. There are 9 diamonds there. There are not too many locations in Sydney that have that many baseball diamonds. And I'll also touch on the softball. We have a purpose-built location at St Ives. However, that could do with some more love. That could do with some upgraded drainage there as well too. Because we tend to produce New South Wales reps, Australian reps, Olympians, and silver medal Olympians in baseball as well too. And that's come out of the Ku-ring-gai Steelers Baseball Club. So I'm glad that you highlighted this with your Mayoral Minute, and it was a privilege to be asked by the Ku-ring-gai Steelers Club to attend their function.
Next is Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you. I just wanted to say well done to Matt and good luck in Peru.
Right, are there any other speakers on this item? If not, let's put this to a vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Right, next up is Mayoral Minute 3, Housing Policy Updates July 2024. Now, on this occasion, it's quite a long update. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will read the introduction and then see who else wants to speak. This Mayoral Minute provides an update on local activity regarding the state government's housing policies since the ordinary meeting of 18th of June. As this Mayoral Minute is longer than those of prior months, I will draw attention to key actions required by Council. First, from 1st of July 2025, dual occupancies will be allowed in Ku-ring-gai via private certifier, exempt and compliant CDCs. The default minimum lot size for dual occupancies in the exempt and compliant development SEP is 400 square metres for 2 dwellings. However, Ku-ring-gai can update its local environment plan and development control plan if it wishes to introduce a minimum lot size that is more sympathetic to urban tree canopy, biodiversity, climate resilience and heritage. The second point is from 1st of July 2024, the Ministerial Statement of Expectations Order requires all New South Wales councils to improve their development application turnaround times and update their local planning strategies in line with the department's dwelling targets and SEPs. If a council's performance is not satisfactory, the Minister may appoint a planning administrator or confer the function of council onto a Sydney district or regional planning panel. As such, Ku-ring-gai should note the ministerial statement and work towards delivering upon it. So that's introduction. There's a lot more detail in this Mayoral minute, but from an action point of view, I think it is in Ku-ring-gai's best interest that we enable our staff to proceed with updates to our local environment plan and any measures necessary to make sure that planning and development stays within Ku-ring-gai's control. Just seeking any other speakers on this update. If not, let's put this to a vote. All those in favour of MM3, raise your hand. And that is Councillors Kay, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Ward and Nye. And against are Councillor Spencer and Pettit. So I declare that carried. Okay, we are now up to petitions. So have any petitions been received? No? I would now like to invite councillors to nominate any items on the agenda that they would like to have a site inspection for. No? Okay. Now, can I please ask a councillor to nominate any items on the agenda that they wish to adopt in accordance with the officer's recommendation, allowing for minor changes without debate? So, Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to nominate items GB 2, 6, 8 and 9, if I may.
Everyone happy with moving 2, 6, 8 and 9? So I'll just read them out. 2 is the panel of Code of Conduct reviewers. 6 is the investment report for 30th of June 2024. 8 is the environmental levy grant program. And 9 is a range of policy updates. We're seeking a seconder. Councillor Smith seconded that. So moved by Councillor Lennon, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay. All right. So any other? Councillor Wheatley, you're next.
Can I move GB1?
Yeah, sure. I just need to step outside and we'll have the deputy chairing.
All right, so GB1, which is the Heritage Reference Committee meeting minutes from the 6th of June 2024 and 2024 to 2025 Heritage Home Grants allocation. Do I have a mover? I think Councillor Wheatley wanted to move it and a seconder, and that is Councillor Smith. Do we have any speakers on this? Oh, sorry. Moving without debate. Do we have any speakers on this?
Nobody withdrawing.
Sorry?
Nobody withdrawing.
You've got your line on. Sorry. I thought there were some speakers because there were lights on. Okay. So if there's no speakers, let's just put this to the vote. All those in favour, including myself, so that's unanimous. Thank you. And we'll just wait for Councillor Nye and Councillor Lennon to come back into the chamber. Thank you.
Next up is Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Nye. Would you like a coffee?
Better than Mrs. So
I would like to move NM6 for being voted on without debate.
I'd like to withdraw that one.
So NM6 is withdrawn. Councillor Greg Taylor.
I'd like to move NM3 without debate.
NM3 without debate. Any?
I've just got to leave the chamber for NM. Oh, sorry, not.
First Nations
3.
people.
Engagement.
Withdrawn.
Withdrawn. Okay, so NM3 and 6 have been withdrawn. Councillor Pettit.
I'm happy to move GB7 as printed, officer's recommendation.
GB7
Withdrawn.
withdrawn. Councillor Spencer.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I would like to move NM2 to be voted on without debate, which is doggy daycare. No withdrawals there. Let's put that to a vote. Seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour, that is unanimous. And then I'd also like to move NM5, which is giving residents choice in household energy. That's seconded by Councillor Greg Taylor. Anyone withdrawing that, or we'll put it to a vote? All those in favour of NM5, that is unanimous. Councillor Lennon, your light is on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move NM1 without debate.
Okay, so sun protection for spectators at sporting grounds.
I would like to withdraw.
Oh, withdrawn, okay. Anyone want to try to move NM4? Or, okay, so just as a summary, we've voted on 2, 6, 8, 9 as GBs, as well as NMs 2 and 5. Is there anything else that councillors... Oh, GB1 we've done as well. All right, okay. Cool. So if that's it, we now move on to items for debating. And the first item is GB3 Ku-ring-gai Council sponsorship. I would like to move something that is... Oh, okay. Councillor Kay needs to leave for this one. I've prepared something on a screen which seems to have a formatting issue. So basically this is the staff's recommendation with minor adjustments to MSTYP and KPO. The total is 85,900, which is similar to last year with CPI. Seeking a seconder.
Sorry, can you scroll up just to be sure we get all the numbers correct? Sorry.
Okay, so can we scroll up so that the councillors can review all the numbers? So they are the same numbers as the officer's recommendation, except with MSTYP and KPO slightly adjusted.
Can we have a look at that?
Scroll down for those two, and it brings the total to a similar amount to the last 2 years, but with a bit of CPI adjustment.
Sorry, where's okay, there it is. Is it similar to last year?
Yeah, it's similar to the last 2 years. So 2 years ago, the total value was 85,000. 1 year ago, the total value was 79,900.
Sorry, I just have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So the MSTYP.
Actually, first of all, can I get a seconder
okay.
before Councillor Ward seconded? Okay, Councillor Spencer, you've got a question.
So remember the last year we discussed the amount for MSTYP, and the audit committee, risk and audit committee, I think, recommended something like $6,500, if I'm not wrong.
Through to the general manager, or I don't recall it, but
I think it would to be the same as the others.
Mr Mayor and Councillors, you're correct, Councillor Spencer. The Audit and Risk Committee recommended that we run the request from the Marion Street Theatre and the Ku-ring-gai Philharmonic Orchestra into the grants program. And that's, well, we did that a few years ago, and this is why we're seeing it now in the sponsorship program and in the sponsorship program. So that was the recommendation. They didn't recommend an amount. The staff recommend the amounts.
No, I don't believe there was a number, but they were saying something like has to be consistent with the others, that they have to go through a proper review and so on. So is this it? That's my question.
Yeah, Mr Mayor and Councillors, yes, this is it, and it's been this way for about 3 years now.
All right, so 20,000 is it? And
That
that's
was
consistent with the recommendation of the Risk and Audit Committee thing?
Mr Mayor and councillors, yes, it's all under the one sponsorship program now, and it is assessed against all the other sponsorships that we receive.
So as the mover, I'm going to not speak to it. I'll just reserve my right. Councillor Ward is seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I reserve my right.
All right. Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment and just change the MSTYP and the Philharmonic Orchestra to 25 each and seek a seconder. And the reasons why 25.
Seeking a seconder for the amendment from Councillor Pettit. So let's see, is there a... Okay, let's change it on the screen first. And it brings the total to 93,900. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Lennon put up his hand first. So Councillor Pettit as the mover of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We've heard here that we don't invest enough in arts and culture. We actually have this later on an NM to be debated. And we always seem to be penny pitching left, right and centre. What's it, a few grand. But if we actually want to invest in our future and our kids, youth, we actually should put some decent money to it. If you haven't been to the KPO, do yourself a favour and go down and watch their performances. They are outstanding. They are world class. So I think we should really be putting a decent amount of money in it. The KPO normally asks for 25. They don't ask for any more. They don't go into exorbitant figures. They've been always very consistent. And I think 25, given that we are in a difficult times now for fundraising for all these various organisations, and council has the capacity to be a little bit more generous. So, we talk the talk, it's now time to walk the walk as well too. So if we're talking about arts and culture, we've got to put some decent money in. And these are two of our premium organisations as far as arts and culture is concerned. And we are investing in our youth in this particular area. We don't actually have an Marion Street Theatre, but we can put dollars in their bank accounts so that they can continue to grow and expand and put wonderful performances in place. So if you haven't been to either of them, get along, see them, enjoy it, see where we are investing our money. Thank you.
Councillor Lennon as seconder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And look, I endorse what Councillor Pettit has just said. In the last month, I've had the great pleasure of attending performances by both the Main Street Theatre for Young People and the Ku-ring-gai Philharmonic Orchestra. And quite frankly, they're both excellent. Both provided wonderful, one case afternoon, the other case evening of entertainment. We saw talent, we saw dedication. And quite frankly, the few $1,000s that we're expending here doesn't mean very much to the budget of this municipality, but means a lot to these two particular groups of people. And I suggest that anybody in this municipality who has a chance to attend performances of either one of them, do so at every opportunity. In the case of Manchester City, for young people last week, we had a performance of Shack up there at the Douglas Pickering Pavilion at Survive Showground. Councillor Ward and I were both there. And this was not just a talented group of people. This was an engaging opportunity to be part of really quite frank quality theatre by young people, and to get the sense of this development in their characters. And I know in the past we've heard from people at the Main Street Theatre for Young People how much that body develops not only the acting abilities of these young people, but their entire character development, their maturity, their engagement with others. It's fantastic, and this is a small investment to contribute to culture, to well-being, and I endorse this motion and encourage my colleagues to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Ward, you're next.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. May I ask a question?
Sure.
Could I ask what was the original ask from Mayoral Street Theatre for Young People and KPO?
Director of Community.
Mr Mayor and councillors, the Marion Street Theatre for Young People asked for $40,000.
And KPO?
POs was 25,000.
Okay, and is that consistent with what we've given previously? What we've recommended is what I heard.
Mr Mayor and councillors, what we're seeing on the screen is probably more consistent than what the staff are recommending,
Right.
mainly because I explained we've got, I think there's about $187,000 worth of requests and only $80,000 to distribute. So it is consistent with what.
Thank you.
Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. So I'm not proposing an amendment. I'm just proposing an idea, whether the mover and seconder would like to take this on. Yes or no, it doesn't matter. So I have no objection with the KPO having $25,000 because that was what they asked for. And I am not in favor of increasing the amount for Marion Street Theatre for young people. We've been through this before, and I've said this, nearly every year, the same thing. So, Marion Street Theatre for young people, when I first came on council, we were very excited to help them, and we approved $75,000 a year for 2 years to help them get along with their theatre and all their production and so on, and so that they'll be on their own 2 feet and so on. And I did my part as well. I enrolled my son into one of their classes, and we brought a few friends, his friends, to enroll in some of the classes too. So altogether there were about 7 or 8 students there. And then the following term, we were told that we can't enroll because there's a cap, there's a limit to the number of students they teach. They will not open up more classes because quality is very important for them, and then they would only, a teacher can only manage X number of students. And I was thinking, this is crazy. You are asking for money to help you carry on with your operations, and yet you are refusing to open up more classes. So I've made this same speech before, several times over. And another example would be, not in a way of promoting them, but it's a good business. Jazz Factory, for instance, they have not asked for a single cent. It's a commercial business, and they seem to be doing very well. And some of my son's classmates who were unfortunate, they didn't get into one of the acting classes, and they got into Jazz Factory. And so much so that their parents went to join in. So there were adults learning dancing, and kids learning dancing and acting and so on. And here we are in council. Year after year, we have Marion Street Theatre for young people asking us for funding. Now, and I've also said before that Marion Street Theatre for young people is nothing more than a former tenant of a council property. So when we decide not to rent the place out anymore, it is not our responsibility to then find a new home for them. I have not heard of any business, any commercial entity or government entity, pay $75,000 a year to an ex-tenant to say, hey, look, I'm so sorry, this building is unfit for you, we can't have you anymore, here's $75,000 for 3 years, and come back every year for more money. Now, there's another thing that I said, that there is a distinction between the KPO and Marion Street Theatre for young people. The KPO is Ku-ring-gai Philharmonic Orchestra, Ku-ring-gai. I'm happy to sponsor that because it is Ku-ring-gai. Marion Street Theatre for young people is very specific. It's from Marion Street, right? So what if I open a new one tomorrow, Gilroy Theatre for young people, and then I ask for sponsorship? Are you guys going to sponsor that? So why do you sponsor one in Marion Street and not one in Taramara? And I also said a few times before in the last few years If they change the name to Ku-ring-gai Theatre for Young People, it's a different story. Then they are representing the whole Ku-ring-gai, but they're not. They are representing Mayoral Street Theatre, specific to that particular building. I got another minute. Now, why it is very specific? It is specific because they are not even willing to move to a different location because they want to be at Mayoral Street. It has to be Mayoral Street. So ask the Gordon ward to pay for it. Why should my ward pay for that? It is Mayoral Street. That's a distinction. Ku-ring-gai, KPO, is different. They're a very good orchestra. Happy to fund them. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to this amendment? If not, let's vote on whether or not this amendment should become the motion. All those in favour of the amendment becoming the motion, that is Councillors Pettit, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Two Taylors, Ward and Nye, and against is Councillor Spencer. Okay, and so now that has become the motion. Are there any other speakers who would like to speak on this item? If not, I will sum up as the mover of the original motion. So I am in support of all of these initiatives. Each initiative is aimed at promoting awareness, not just within Ku-ring-gai, but the broader community of Ku-ring-gai, to attract people to contribute to local businesses, to support local people, do things like that. I'll just stop there. So let's put this to a vote. All those in favour, that is Councillors Pettit, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Ward and Councillor Nye, and against is Councillor Spencer. So I declare that carried, and we now invite Councillor Kay back into the room. So next up is GB4, which is the status of Women's Advisory Committee, and I am seeking a motion for GB4. Yeah. Oh, well, you could raise a motion if you want. Okay, so you've got a motion? Okay, so based on feedback from the previous meeting, can you please read out points A to E for us? With your microphone on.
A, that Council considers the recommendations from the Independent Selection Panel and appoints 15 community members to participate in the Status of Women's Advisory Committee. I do believe that was the same as what was on the original motion. B, that the Council considers the recommendation from the Independent Selection Panel and appoints 10 reserves for the Status of Women's Advisory Committee. C, that the Chair and Deputy Chairperson of the Status of Women's Advisory Committee be appointed when the incoming Council appoints councillors to each of its advisory and reference committees, which is in the next term. That women on Council be included on the committee, so all women.
And seeking seconder, Councillor Wheatley. So, all right, Councillor Kay, would you like to speak?
Okay, I'm just going to speak briefly on this. This has been 3 years in the making, so I'm really excited where we've got to this point, but have been frustrated through the process. But I do want to firstly say thank you to all the people who've nominated and been patient on this committee throughout this whole process. I know we've really put you through the works, but thank you for sticking by us, and I'm really looking forward to this committee being up and running. Just addressing B, which is one of the changes, the original was 5 reserves. I'm just increasing it to 10, which will go just from the next down from the list. The reasoning behind that is that I know with some of our committees, sometimes the times are not suitable for people, so We've worked really hard to get to this point, so I want to make sure we have a solid committee with lots of people. And I'm very happy with the diversity that this selection panel has produced. And in relation to the chair and deputy chair, realistically, we probably won't get a meeting in. We're going to have a new set of councillors. We have to spill all the committees, so let's not do it. Let's do it at that time. And D, all women should be included on this committee that are on council. So that's basically it. As I said, I'm really looking forward. Women have been fighting for equal opportunities. This is an opportunity for us to have a voice for women and merge it with the forums that have already been very successful. And I also want to say a special thank you to the councillors who have stood by me through this 3 years. Thank you for your support.
Councillor Wheatley, as seconder, would you like to speak?
I'd also like to say thank you to the almost 50 women who applied for the position, and there were some phenomenal people who were on it, but obviously at the end of the day it was outsourced and everyone can't be accepted. So with that, I'm thank you to Councillor Kay for your persistence in putting this forward, and we look forward to the first meeting in the next term.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Kay.
Just a quick comment for Councillor Wheatley. You'd be rather excited, as I was, that there were 2 women in the 80s age bracket that were selected on the committee. So, yeah, great work by the independent panel. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you're allowed to make a comment. You could have raised a question, but I'd invite Councillor Kay to sum up, and I'll consider that as part of the summing up.
Okay, I've basically said what I need to. Thanks again for everybody. It's been a long journey, but we've got here. This is a win for women. You know, let's our local women have a voice and do some amazing improvements. But thank you to everyone here today, and I hope you can all support it.
Before we put it to a vote, I've got the Director of Community pointing out a question or something, so...
Mr Mayor and councillors, earlier this evening there was a memo that was mentioned to the councillors which added another part to that recommendation, and it's basically that the terms of reference be updated for vacant positions on the committee to be filled by reserves. So it just adds that into the so right.
Oh, it's there on point C.
Point C?
On the tiny screen. We'll have bigger screens next term. Okay, so all is good. Let's put this to a vote. All those in favour, that is unanimous. Cool. So GB4 is done. Next up is GB5, improving the accessibility and transparency of public forums, changes to code of meeting practice. Seeking a motion from someone. So Councillor Alec Taylor has his light. Councillor Alec Taylor.
Okay, thank you. I actually have a motion that I believe staff have. It's a little bit of a hybrid, and I will read it out. It is that Council live stream public forums and amend the Code of Meeting Practice to provide for public forums to be publicly broadcast, but not published on Council's website. Part B is public forums will always be held as a hybrid meeting unless the meeting is unable to be held physically in the Council chamber, in which case it will be held by audio-visual link only, and amend the Code of Meeting Practice as in Attachment A3. Part C is that the draft Code of Meeting Practice be placed on public exhibition for 28 days, noting that submissions will be accepted for up to 42 days. And Part D is that Council note that a report will be brought to Council after exhibition, summarising the public response and providing a final version of the Code of Meeting Practice for consideration.
Is there a seconder to this motion? Councillor Ward put up her hand first. Councillor Alec Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, just very briefly, I think there are lots of people across Ku-ring-gai that would like to participate in our public forums, but they find it difficult to attend in person for a wide range of reasons, such as disability, immobility, work hours, any number of reasons. Changing them to make them a hybrid and allow people to participate remotely, I think just makes us more accessible and inclusive. And not publishing it afterwards is a reduction in our risk profile. And I feel like if you want to watch the forum, you should log in and watch the forum.
Councillor Ward as seconder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that there are many people who are very interested in listening or watching to the public forum but are unable to attend for whatever reason. What we have here is a really good recommendation, and I support it, and I think particularly going to exhibition and getting a wider range of people to comment on it is a good thing.
Councillor Kay.
I have an amendment,
All right, sure.
which is the staff recommendation.
So staff recommendation as the amendment.
Yeah, but in the recommendation it says if, so if I could just move A, B, C, that will work if. I think it's a choice.
Okay, so it's all on the screen. Can everyone see it? Staff recommendation with word if deleted. Seeking a seconder for the amendment. Councillor Spencer seconds. So Councillor Kay, would you like to speak?
Okay, I'll be brief. We have discussed this before. This is all about transparency, good governance, inclusion. You know, unfortunately, COVID brought some very negative things, but a positive thing was actually having these online forums. We've had online forums before during COVID. We never seemed to have any problems. The hybrid is definitely a good model. I do understand not live streaming it on the day and having that extra day to review if there's anything unlawful or any defamatory comments. I have full confidence also in the chair on that night that would pull up anything that wasn't quite right and having that extra buffer. At the moment, we all know that the audio is recorded anyway, so the public does have access to that, but it does disconnect them from participating because they have to be here in person. So I definitely think that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to be inclusive. This will go on public exhibition as it needs to. Let the community have their feedback. If we need some tweaking or we're not happy with it, we can change it at any time. Some of you may or may not be aware that with the Code of Meeting Practice, at the beginning of each term, it has to be reviewed within 12 months of a new council term anyway. So let's just get this done. Thank you.
So Councillor Spencer as seconder, would you like to speak? No? Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have much of an objection to this. I could support the staff recommendation as well. I'm not averse to publishing the forums afterwards. I feel like we might have a slightly better risk profile if we don't do that. But of course, people can record their own, make their own recordings of the forum while it's happening live anyway. I'm probably going to actually support this amendment. I don't mind it replacing my version of this, but I think the most important thing is that we make them accessible and inclusive. And I think we're all really in the same place on this. I think we all agree, and all we're really debating is the finer points of just how far to go.
Are there any other speakers? I saw a light go on and off before. No? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that was mine. Just in relation to that, I'm in support of either one of them. I was actually leaning more towards Councillor Taylor's one, just in the fact that there are some people in the community, it does take them a lot to get up here and speak, and they possibly, and again we'll get the feedback either on either one that's advertised, that it's not something that's going to be sort of dragged out, looked at or displayed later for others that a community member may be upset about or thought that was taken the wrong way. So I honestly believe that what Councillor Taylor had originally put up, that anybody that was really serious about having a look at it, they would actually probably turn it on the night. That's all. Thank you.
I'll also speak to this. Look, I'm okay with either the alternative that's here and the original motion. I would have leant towards the original motion. I'm just giving an example. At our last public forum, a resident said a few things which I personally didn't take any offence to, but it did cause some concern with someone else who was in the room. So it's not always possible for the chair to pick up certain issues until it's already too late. And then we have this dilemma, right? Like there's something that caused someone to have concern. What do we do the next day? Do we publish it? Do we not publish it? Do we redact that bit? Do we not redact that bit? And it gets very messy, especially if there's an issue where, let's say, for example, there are councillors on both sides and there will be pressure on the general manager to either remove it or to keep it. And it's just not a very fun situation to be in. Look, I'm ultimately okay with either way that we go. The original motion probably was safer, but if we have serious issues with the staff recommendation, we can always change it next council term. So I'll just leave it at that. So now we're just seeking other. No, let's put. Oh, Councillor Ward, light is on. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question. Is this part of our risk appetite statement recording?
I'll just answer this and the General Manager can correct me if I'm wrong. Council's risk appetite at the moment is based on a risk matrix and a list of risks that we've defined. I'm not sure if members of the public speaking at a public forum being live streamed is part of one of the risks that we currently have documented. So it's officially not part of our risk appetite in any way, but if it were to be defined, I don't know what the outcome would be. And I don't know what Council's underlying risk appetite is, the undocumented risk appetite. The General Manager, do you have anything further to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, taking into account Council's general risks that it does take for all of its activities, I believe that this risk is within the appetite of what Council accepts every day of the week. There's a number of mechanisms in here to manage the risks that are there. And as the report notes, there's a lot of other councils who live stream as we speak.
Any other questions, comments, speakers? If not, let's put this to a vote. So what we're voting, no, we're not up to that yet. So what we're doing now is we've got an amendment, which is the officer's recommendation, and we are voting on whether or not amendment should become the motion. So all those in favour of amendment becoming the motion, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Okay, so now that's become the motion. Are there any speakers to the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Taylor to sum up as the mover of the original. Well, just.
I have nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay, so nothing further to add from the original mover of the motion when summing up. Let's put this to a vote now. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay, next up is, so we've gone through all the GBs, general business items. We are now...
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, GB7. Okay, sorry. It's hard to read my own writing. Okay, GB7. We've got a motion from Councillor Lennon and seconded by Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff have the motion sent to them today. You can bring that up onto the screen. So I'll circulate it to all councillors this afternoon. No members of the public won't be familiar with it.
Can you please read it out for us?
Of course. Council notes the report contained in the business papers for the meeting tonight, which suggested a range of approximately $7 million to approximately $15 million for the likely costs of a minimalist reopening of the Main Street Theatre. Item 2, Council affirms Council support for development application DA 0144/20, which is the one that has been talked about for some years. Item 3, Council notes that the development application DA 0144, sorry, that should be /20. We can perhaps correct that on the screen. My apologies. Requires substantial commencement of the project by the 19th of August 2026 to remain valid. Item 4, the staff will report to the Council on the likely costs and timetable to redevelop the Main Street Theatre in accordance with that development application and the actions that must be taken to achieve substantial commencement by the 19th of August 2026 in order to preserve the development consent, in order to give it value.
So that is moved by Councillor Lennon, seconded by Councillor Ward. So Councillor Lennon, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've just had presented in the business papers the costings of the minimalist reopening of Main Street Theatre, and I thank staff for that very comprehensive and very useful report. It's useful to know that the baseline over the years, a lot of people who support Main Street Theatre quite understandably want to know the cost and they want to know what the options are. The idea of the minimalist reopening has come up a lot of times in conversation. It is useful to know what that alternative is, because we need to look at options. Now, having regard to that costings and having regard to that report and having regard to the development application, the message that I've received in the last few weeks is that the development application is worth it. It costs a bit more, but given that we get so much more, it is worth doing. So what we now need to do, with Council support, is to get the up-to-date costings and timetable on implementing that development application. And those of us who attended the Main Street Theatre soirees over the years, I know Councillor Pettit and I were there at a few over the years, will know that that development application had a genius, it had a development, and there was a lot of enthusiasm for it. So this is the time to say we've considered other options, but we want the theatre to proceed, and this is the next step in proceeding towards what I hope will be, with a lot of hard work, of a lot of people, the revival of the Main Street Theatre through the course of the next council term. So I thus encourage you to go to the next step, invite staff to provide us with the next bit of information that we need for the next council to then make the decision, I trust, to proceed to the revival of Main Street Theatre. Thank you.
Councillor Ward as seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I believe this to be a really good amendment. Since 2022, my fellow councillor Lennon and I have had MST on the LCM agenda numerous times. We continue to explore options to build MST with funds other than the proceeds of former Gordon Bowling Club. For me, this is simply and wasn't an option because once we've sold the land, we cannot ever get it back. I thank the staff for their work in relation to GB7. This has given us an understanding of funds required to partly open the theatre. However, the costs are considerable for a band-aid solution. So we must change the passage of time and move forward to build with the approved DA plans. I think we will have an inspirational building in a theatre. It is a shame that an important asset with its roots dating back to 1906 as the Soldiers' Memorial Hall has been neglected for years and finally closed in 2014. MSD holds a rich history. Over time, it evolved into a vibrant community theatre, hosting dances, parties, lectures, drama performances, and even polio vaccinations. It served as a vital gathering place, fostering connections among North Shore residents. To this day, the desire for the theatre in Ku-ring-gai remains strong, supported by the survey conducted by the council. Unfortunately, the project's prolonged timeline has inflated costs to over $25 million. I continue to be at a loss as to how a significant community asset has laid idle for years. It is a no-brainer that a council must reaffirm the redevelopment of Marion Street Theatre as stated in this motion. I remain committed to the redevelopment of Marion Street Theatre and have given it a priority since I became a councillor for Gordon Ward. MST must be kept at the forefront of council planning to ensure the goal to create a vibrant, multi-use arts venue that honours live theatrical traditions while promoting creativity and inclusivity in its final achieved. We will no doubt leave a lasting legacy for future generations. And if I may quote Wendy Blaxland, who said, "Marion Street Theatre holds the soul of Ku-ring-gai in its very fabric. People have been gathering there for over 100 years to meet as a community, tell stories, make art of all kinds. Let's make it happen again." Thank you.
So, Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It was quite crystal clear at that particular function that we had there in East Linfield that nobody wanted the bargain basement version. So I don't even know why we went down that path. There was another report that people were sick of getting reports. Back in 2000, when we closed it, I'm the last councillor remaining from that era, nobody wanted the bargain basement version then either. They didn't want, we couldn't afford the Rolls Royce, so we went in between. And that's where we've always been. Not the no frills version and not the gold plated version. Middle of the road. Now last term I think we actually had the VA approved, so this term it was to get the funding done. And we haven't. Last council term we had a plan for the funding. This term it got turned on its head and nobody came up with an alternative. Looking for donations, looking for a philanthropist has yielded nothing. We will go down the path and explore that again. We had so many different versions of Marion Street this term, instead of sticking with the plan from the previous council term. We had the knockdown and rebuilt multi-storey. We went and investigated the bargain basement one, which nobody wanted. So it'll be up to the next council term with a new set of councillors with a vision to actually get the funding up and running. Now we've talked about donations and getting people to put money into it. I would like to see those Gordon Ward councillors who've espoused going out to getting philanthropy to put their hands in their pocket, maybe mortgage their properties. $1.5 million each gets $3 million for the project. That's 10% of the costs. That's actually putting your money where your mouth is. So if councillors are really, really set on building it at whatever cost, probably a good idea to put your money where your mouth is. Jam in your pocket, make some of those donations.
So just to clarify, were you speaking in support of this or against?
I'll let you work it out.
Okay, right, next up is Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. I have a question first, if I may. I just would like Councillor Ward to clarify what she meant by Marion Street Theatre has been there for over 100 years, people telling stories and so on. I'd like to know who's telling stories for over 100 years.
Sure, Councillor Spencer. Ward.
Mr. Mayor, I quoted Wendy Blaxland, who said people have been gathering there for over 100 years to meet as a community.
Telling stories?
Telling stories, making arts of all kinds. Well, there were people there 100 years ago that would have been telling stories.
So, follow-up question. Do you know when the Marion Street Theatre was set up? What year?
You're able to
The
take
staff
on
email.
notice or refer to staff?
Oh, maybe staff can assist.
So through me.
Staff can assist. We had the
So it was around about 1960
1960.
that it was converted from the Soldiers Memorial Hall to a community hall to a theatre.
sorry. So let me use-
1966?
1960.
67? Okay.
Sorry, can I just use my calculator just to get a exact number of years. So you can tell how many years? So is that more than 100 years? It's not more than 100 years. Well, the way she said it, it's like as if
Sure.
the Marion Street Theatre has been around for 100 years. So anyway,
Would you like to
here's-
give a speech? Like,
Yes.
you might as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, and again, the Marion Street Theatre has been closed for about, I think it's from 2012, 2014, 2014. That's about 10 years. So if you look at if you look at native title, for instance, if you use native title, which is a very big thing in Australia, it's been closed for over 10 years. The people have alienated from the land. It's gone for 10 years. There's one whole generation of kids, right, who have grown up, not involved in the Marion Street Theatre. They have no idea. They don't know, never heard of Marion Street Theatre at all. They've probably grown up, learning dance and watching theatre and all that somewhere else, or they might be learning martial arts, Muay Thai, karate, I don't know, but definitely not Marion Street Theatre. It's been alienated for 10 years. So it has been separated. It's been disconnected. So they can't keep on saying that it's been there for 100 years. Now, firstly, it's not even 100 years. And they can't say this for generation and generation. What generation? You lost 10 years. It's a lost generation. So, no, I do not think it is worth this amount to open just a minimal theatre just to satisfy a few people who are nostalgic about this old building that has no facade at all. It's just a piece of wall. It doesn't look nice at all. It's not even heritage. Thank you.
Any other speakers? That seemed like against. Any other speakers on this motion? I'll speak briefly to this. What I see in this motion is we don't commit in this motion to building DA 0144/20. We're only looking into the steps required to fulfill the development application. What I also see in this GB item is there's two options. One is for the minimalist opening, which may cost somewhere between 7 and 15 and provide us with a theatre that's functional, can be used, and it's relatively easy to fund. And you can compare that to the full DA, which might provide an extra 30-40% benefit, but at double or triple the price. So look, what I'm happy about is that this decision of whether or not to pay substantially more for an improved functionality is left to the next council term. I don't think it would have been fair for us this council term to commit to a decision that the councillors of next council term will have to deal with, will have to fund. So in light of all that, I'm generally supportive of this, but noting that it's really the next council term and the councillors next council term who will decide what goes on. Councillor Kay, your light is on.
Okay, I will speak briefly, and then I'll start with a question maybe first. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Watson, just in relation to number 4, staff report to council, how long do you think that's going to take? We have a timeline on that report.
It's not a very big piece of work, but it won't come back to this council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just briefly, I will speak on it. At the end of the day, firstly, I wanted to say thank you to all the staff. Marion Street has been on the agenda on our business papers nearly every month this term. And I know the effort that staff have gone through to produce reports, report after report. So I do want to really say thank you to all that staff. involved because it's been very time consuming. Looking at this report that has been produced to us, at the end of the day, this community wants a theatre. They want a new theatre. I don't think it's feasible for us to be looking at upgrading. It really has to be a theatre. I do agree with Mayor Nye that it's difficult to commit to financial commitments this term with only 2 meetings to go, and this is definitely a decision to move forward with the next council. I do hope in the next council term, whether I'm re-elected or not, that we have a cohesive group that works actively on trying to get this done. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. So we're coming to the end of this council term. So my question is this: why is it every time when we're towards the end of the council term, someone would make some promises, to Marion Street, or before it was Linfield Hub, you might do it next month, I don't know. And then after that, in the following term, this is still my question, nothing is done about it until the end of that term. So I think the correct person to direct this question to is the longest serving councillor here, who's been here for 100 years, Councillor Pettit. Whether he can clarify that this has been recurring.
Okay, so to the centenarian, whatever. Answer?
Oh, geez, I should have brought my walking stick, Councillor Spencer. At least you didn't say octogenarian or something like that. But you're quite correct. Every council term, we get all enthusiastic. We did in the first term there. When we closed it down, we needed something bigger and better. We started work on that. And then it fell away. So we get close to an election and then suddenly it ramps up again. We went through so many iterations with this particular thing. We had it at the Gordon Hub, and then we wanted to go back to Marion Street. And then councillors or candidates come along and says, we're going to build it, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then they get elected and nothing happens. We just go around in circles again. So this is where now, 2013 we actually closed it. And the same thing, we've gone to this term where everybody's saying we're going to build it, and that's on my election brochures, and then nothing happens. No definitive plans happen. So, and again, we'll probably see the thing happen in the next term as well too, because by the time the DA comes around and somebody finds the funds or doesn't find the funds, then they'll be promising that at the end of the next term, that they will be the ones to build it. They'll be the saviours.
Sorry.
Councillor Spencer, do you have another question?
Yeah, follow-up question. So this is again to Councillor Pettit. So if nothing has been done for the last 10 years, do you think anything will be done in the next 10 years?
Interesting question, Councillor Spencer. I think it would be very challenging to get this project up and built, because at the end of each term we get a turnover of councillors, which is normally 50%. As we've seen, they change direction in the scope, the funding and direction for the site. So I think it'll be challenging to get it built, very much so within the next 2 terms.
Councillor Kay, do you have a question?
I do have a question for Councillor Pettit. Councillor Pettit, would you disagree or agree with me that last term we worked very actively to get to the DA stage, including the councillors and the staff? Yes, it may have not come into fruition in that term, but I think that term was critical at getting to this point.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Yes, last term we did get it to the starting line. We got it to the DA, we got to the right number, 249 seats. We knew that was the correct number for it and the correct location for it, if that's what the community wanted. This term didn't follow through the funding strategy, so that's where we're at. Instead of having a grand opening at East Linfield, we could have been having it at Marion Street. We didn't follow the plan. Whether the next term, whatever funding plan they come up with, we'll see what happens. But it has been a challenge. We got almost there.
Okay, I'm going to say now that clause 9.17 of the Code of Meeting Practice says councillors must put questions directly, succinctly, respectfully, and without argument. So from my perspective, the last 3 questions were with argument. So just be mindful of that. But next
Sorry,
on
I didn't-
is
I didn't
Councillor
argue.
Ward.
Thank you, Mr.
Do you have a
Mayor.
question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, sure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know which staff member, could you advise us as to how many times we have brought a motion about Marion Street Theatre to the OCM, given that we've just been told at the beginning we all get gung-ho and then it kind of flows away and then election comes, we're all gung-ho again. So I am sure Councillor Lennon and I have had a number of ideas about what we need to do to get Marion Street Theatre built.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you want an exact answer, we would have to take that on notice, but a number, maybe, I'm guessing 4 or 5, perhaps, motions over this term. Does that sound right?
Thank you. I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, other than selling the former Gordon Bowling Club to build Marion Street Theatre, were there any other initiatives to fund that particular?
During this council term?
No, prior. Councillor Pettit just said there was a strategy for the Marion Street Theatre and it didn't go anywhere. So I just wanted to know what were those strategies. Was there only the one item, which was the Gordon Bowling Club, or were there a number of initiatives as to what can be done to build this?
So if that question is to me, during May 2018, there was a notice of motion. That notice of motion involved asset recycling, selling a number of assets to build a number of assets. For potential sale involved a small block of land somewhere in Linfield, as well as the Gordon Bowling Club, the old Linfield Library site, the Roseville Chase Bowling Club, and a small strip of land in Linfield. Up for being built were the St Ives Basketball Court, the Linfield Village Hub, and the Marion Street Theatre, as well as a $5 million revamp of the East Linfield Community Centre, which would have been our largest meeting space in Ku-ring-gai at the time. Since May 2018, there's been various changes. So at one point, council decided that it did not have the money to knock down, rebuild East Linfield Community Centre. So instead of a $5 million rebuild for 1,200 square metres, we would spend $2 million to just revamp it as it currently is. Later on, due to COVID and the impacts of COVID and a growing population as well, we could see that community space was much more valuable. So council also decided that the bowling clubs should not be sold. What that leaves us at this point in time is this, and we did sell a piece of land in Linfield for $7 million that I can't disclose. But what that leaves in this equation is, on one hand, we are potentially selling the old Linfield Library site and community centre, and on the other hand, we are potentially, with the proceeds of the old Linfield Library site, building a new Linfield Library and Community Centre, building the Marion Street Theatre, and perhaps funding part of the St Ives basketball courts as well. And I'm personally of the view that it can actually achieve all 3 at the same time. We confirmed at least the linkage between the old library site and the Marion Street Theatre in a motion 2 or 3 months ago by the same council. So that's where we're at this point in time. I'd also like to point out one thing, which is, if council had hurried up and delivered the Linfield Village Hub without stuffing around, we wouldn't be in this position right now. The hub would be under construction and we would be talking about building Marion Street as we speak this council term. So that's my answer to the question. And since there are no other lights on, I'll ask Councillor Lennon to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. First of all, as you say, in May, this council did pass a resolution tying the funding of Marion Street Theatre to an asset sale, should that asset sale occur, namely the Linfield Library. At no time did the past council or any other past council pass a resolution tying the sale of any bowling club to the Main Street Theatre. I know it's talked about, but no council resolution ever tied the two. No council resolution until May of this year provided a funding strategy for the Main Street Theatre until the resolution we passed in May. So this council has actually moved things forward. And in terms of the history, I think to describe the Main Street Theatre as a source of storytelling for 100 years is quite accurate. It only became a theatre in 1967, but it was built by members of the local community before the Great War as a meeting place. Council took it up, what was then the Shire Council, took over the community hall, and it became the Soldiers Memorial Hall. It became a theatre, as we heard, in 1967, and through those years it was a place of community. There were stories told. Even though there was not a Main Street Theatre, there was theatre. Very famously, the Hollywood actress Janet Leigh came to the Soldiers Memorial Hall. It's well recorded. This was a place of storytelling. Theatre is one part, an important part of the history of the Main Street Theatre building, but it is a history of storytelling and of culture. And as I encourage you all to support this motion, it is because culture is bringing people together, it's leading a life more than just the mechanics, it's touching our hearts, it's encouraging us to think, it's encouraging us to have lives that are more than just the mundane. And in all its forms, the Main Street Theatre has been a place of that. So I encourage you to that particular direction. And in terms of Councillor Ward and I, our very first meeting in this particular term, we had a motion on Main Street Theatre. We were moving things along. And 5 days before the March 2022 council meeting, Councillor Pettit attended a meeting with us in the Gordon Library in which we were trying to move things along. And I know Councillor Pettit reneged on that by the time we got to the council meeting, and things did not progress. There's nothing more...
Point of order, Mr Mayor. I think that's a bit uncalled for, shall we say, casting dispersions on my character.
Oh, no, I'm not sorry. I do not mean to cast aspersions at all. I was simply stating that you did change your view, and I know very good and intelligent people have reasons for changing their view. But the point is that Councillor Ward and I have done everything that we could do in the context of this, and if we are re-elected, and I hope Councillor Ward and I are re-elected in September, the first meeting of the new council when we're dealing with business, I expect us to put up some motion further moving forward the Main Street Theatre. This is an issue that has been very important to us. And over the years, I've stood in the Clara Bowling Club, which was filled with people, standing room only, because there are people in this municipality that wanted live theatre. The Main Street Theatre is the traditional home of live theatre in this particular municipality, and as we look forward to a new, broader vision of an arts and cultural centre that includes live theatre and so much more, we have an opportunity to build on history, to move forward, and to do something very constructive. So I encourage this motion to you, not because we commit to anything more than collecting more information. As the Mayor said, that will be a decision for the next council term, but this is a chance to make another step forward. The resolution we made was a step forward. It was the first time we actually had a funding strategy in any way crystallised in a council motion. It talked about gaining government funding and philanthropic funding, and I remain of the view that they are sources of funding. We know that there are theatres funded by philanthropists. We know that governments do contribute to theatre, because the Main Street Theatre is a place of theatre, not simply for Clara, not simply for Ku-ring-gai, but for Sydney. And that is how we tap into the world of state and federal governments. That is how we tap into the world of philanthropy. That is how we tap into the people for whom theatre and arts and culture more generally are important. And we have progressed and we have stepped forward. And of course I'd love to be further down the path than we are. But I think Councillor Ward and I have done pretty well in the circumstances, and I thank the councillors who have supported us along the way throughout the journey. And there's more to do, and this is simply another step. So I encourage you to support the motion. Thank you.
Before we vote on this, I'll just address the point of order. So normally when a point of order is raised, I need to make a ruling. On this particular occasion, I didn't verbalise a ruling. My ruling is that it's not a point of order. It's not an issue, but also expanding on that, look, as a mayor and as a chair of this meeting, I see all sorts of things that happen that aren't consistent with the code of meeting practice. So I either have to consistently shut down every single point of debate whenever there's a slightest breach, or I have to consistently allow a lot of things through. I've taken the approach of allowing a lot of things through, which is what other chairs before me have allowed. But I don't want to start taking this approach where I'm seen to be favouring one over another. Now, let's put this to Councillor Alec Taylor.
I think this is a point of order,
Yep.
Mr. Mayor. I actually do believe this may have been a genuine point of order, and I believe that I heard the word renege used in Councillor Leonard's speech, and the word renege means to break a promise. So I personally am of the view that it was a genuine point of order.
If I may comment, Mr. Mayor, I think renege simply means someone has a view and then they take a different view. I don't see it as a matter of dishonour. People change their views all the time.
So I'm just going to rule that. I'm just going to rule that it's not an issue, but you can vote on it if you'd like. So,
No,
Councillor
sorry,
Spencer.
may I suggest something which is quite neutral? Can you
Yeah,
use a
go
different
for
word
it.
instead of renege?
I can't recall the full sentence, but if I said Councillor Pettit changed his view in the
Yes.
5 days before,
Yes.
which is what I intended to mean.
There's a distinction between changing a view and reneging. Reneging means you go back on your word. Changing your views, anyone can change their views.
All right, so now that's, and I'll just confirm, yes, it's possible for councillors to change their mind. I've seen it happen all the time. Now, let's put this to a vote so you can see it on the screen, points 1 to 4. All those in support of points 1 to 4, please raise your hand. And that is Councillors Kay, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Councillor Alec Taylor, Greg Taylor, Ward and Nye, and those against are Councillors Spencer and Pettit. So I declare that carried. Next up is NM1, Sun Protection for Spectators at Sporting Grounds. We have Councillor Smith, who's Councillor...
Mr. Mayor, I withdrew it. Would you like to speak?
Councillor Lennon.
I think Councillor Smith and I both intend to speak to.
Okay,
shall I
so
move it,
Lennon moves and seconded by Smith. Okay, cool. So Councillor Lennon, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Skin cancer, melanoma, is one of those topics that frequently pops up in conversations. I know it does in my family, my extended family, among friends. It is a big issue in this country. And I thank the resident of Gordon Ward who talked about this at a public forum a month or two ago, because it reminded me of an issue that, as I said, is often talked about. And the exposure that people have attending sports was quite rightly raised at that meeting. And this is an opportunity to say, well, here's a circumstance in which probably more than most individuals in this municipality find themselves exposed to the sun. We want to attend sporting events, we want to see our children and our grandchildren playing sport, and there are times when we are vulnerable to the sun. And if we can find some useful means to minimise that exposure, then we can contribute to minimising the impact of sometimes lethal cancer on the population, actually not just of this municipality, but of areas beyond, as people come from outside to attend sporting events. So I encourage Council to support this as a public health matter. This is not a sporting matter, this is a public health matter. And this is looking after our residents and others. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Mr. Mayor, yes, thank you. I did withdraw this. I'm obviously in support of it, but I would like this council to indulge me on this. It was important that we get up and do speak to it this evening, because it is actually a very important cancer that affects many families in Ku-ring-gai and throughout Australia and the rest of the world for that matter. And the reason that I actually withdrew it was that I just wanted to put some facts that we can all sort of think about and that we sort of understand a little bit further. In 2023, there were 18,257 people diagnosed with melanoma. 10,639 were men, 7,618 were women. It's unfortunately the third most common cancer in Australia to date. We've got staff that actually work in the staff that have melanoma that runs through the family and they're having to deal with it. There are, recently, I received some very unfortunate news that my brother was diagnosed with melanoma in the eye, which is a very rare form of cancer, but it is actually from UV sun exposure to what many Australians are. I think if this council can move forward and create a greater shade space in the areas for sporting activities and places where children and people congregate, I think it would be greatly helpful. I would also like to thank Councillor Lennon and also Councillor Wheatley, because I know that she was looking into this particular thing earlier on as well, and I think it's a very important initiative. And for those reasons, I think that, well, I'm very confident that this council will support this motion. So thank you very much.
Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in regards to maybe a little bit more clarification, we're saying all sporting grounds. I'm going to assume that means all the netball courts, the 9 baseball diamonds up at Golden Jubilee, probably the 8 softball diamonds there at St Ives, literally everywhere that any sport is played. Is that the gist of where things are heading with this, Councillor Smith? Okay, that's good, because it is important, because these various locations, people don't think, you know, they're out in there, they might be watching the netball, they might be watching the soccer or football, and they just don't think. They're on the sidelines there, do they wear a hat? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It doesn't matter whether you wear a hat or not. All my sporting life, playing baseball, I wore a cap. And I've had multiple skin cancers there, so a hat doesn't necessarily make a huge difference unless it is a UV rated fabric hat. That's possibly something we can also look at educating, is the type of UV fabric and cloth that people should be wearing, not just a generic shirt or hat, something that will actually provide greater sun protection. So perhaps you might want to look at incorporating something like that into a future motion, making people more sun aware. So I know that you've been very sporting as well too, and Councillor Wheatley has, you know, we're out there and we don't put the sunscreen on, so we need to educate our residents a little bit more. Obviously this is an extremely good initiative, and I'll mention NTRA because they've got 3 fields up there and there's no sun protection. And I'm sure Councillor Spencer would like, and Councillor Wheatley would love to see that those particular people that visit those locations are well protected from the sun and not standing out in the hot sun. Yes. So that was something positive about NTRA. So there you go, you never know you're like in a big city, eh? And again, sun protection is not only in the heat of the day, you know, mid-afternoon, 1 till 3 p.m. It is from literally from sun up till sundown. And educating people as well with, you know, if it's a cloudy day, people think, oh, I'm not going to get sunburned. It's probably the worst time. So it's well worth this motion, and I'm sure staff will have a lot of locations to investigate and a lot of options to come up with, and I'm sure the next council term will be quite interested to see those results and what the costs may well be. So they will have to get the checkbook out, as they say, if you want to make this initiative happen, because it's not going to be cheap. Even when you look at that, the pool, for example, how much sun protection is at the pool? Again, a lot of people go there swimming early in the morning, in the afternoon, not necessarily sun-wise, and it's so easy to get burnt. And even if you take it a little bit further, our bowling clubs, people are out there playing bowls, our more senior ones as well too, they need sun protection around while they're playing bowls as well too. Indoor bowling clubs. Shall we mention basketball courts as well too? Even those people that use half basketball courts, just in an ad hoc usage, there is no protection there for them as well too. So there is a lot of sporting areas that we need to investigate. So it's a worthwhile initiative. I think it's going to be a big report. I'm sure the next council term will enjoy investigating it and funding it.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Spencer.
Just a quick question. What's the budget? for this?
There isn't a budget in this.
And estimated cost?
I think we'll leave that to the discretion and professional judgment of the staff. General Manager, would you like to comment?
I was just wondering whether any of the directors had done any work into this yet.
Through you, I'm going to make this up on my own. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know that this is necessarily a very expensive piece of work. It's almost a policy statement that says where you can, start to think about sunshade, which we do. It's the implementation that becomes a very expensive side of it. But when we do upgrades, we generally try to build in some kind of sun protection. But it would be impossible. I mean, on top of this, there's 100 child play facilities that wouldn't have sunshade either. And where we do a new one, we build in sunshade. But it's very rare we start with a blank slate. When we did the park at Bruce Avenue, $100,000 for that sunshade structure. So you're talking large amounts of money. But, this is almost a policy statement.
Are there any other speakers? If not, I'll ask Councillor Lennon to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think everything that I've heard is perfectly rational, very sensible. This is simply an investigation. This is a concept that councillors, if we pass this motion, obviously if we do, is pointing us all in a direction. This is an important issue, and without preempting the outcome of the report, let's find out what is an option, what the costs are, and as has been said, the next council can look at it, and it may well be a case-by-case decision. It may be a matter of particular measures at particular grounds, at particular costs, will be decided one way, and other grounds, other costs, other measures, another way. So let's get the report, let's get the information, and the next council can make the decisions. Thank you.
All right, let's put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands, and that is unanimous. Next up is NM3, Engagement with First Nations People. Councillor Greg Taylor, would you like to move something?
I certainly would. If I could remove the recommendation there.
And a seconder, any seconder? Councillor Alec Taylor. All right, cool.
I'll just briefly speak to this. So this is regarding First Nations engagement. So in April 2024, Council resolved to prepare a reconciliation action plan. The development and implementation of this RAP, as it's called, will formally acknowledge the value of First Nations communities, their fundamental connection to country, and the nature of their living cultural heritage associated with the land. What's proposed in this motion is an early engagement, and this will assist Council with the following purpose. To understand more about how Council can help support and empower First Nations people and culture in the community, to share traditional fire knowledge, because it's a cultural fire workshop, with First Nations people in the area, Council and possibly other government agencies in the area, to improve contact and connection between local First Nations community members and Council staff, because at the moment we're finding it quite difficult to reach out to our Indigenous people in the area. It's to explore the potential for any future First Nations events that can be supported by Council, and to explore potential future cultural burning workshops and activities. I think I'll just leave it there, but maybe I might ask Councillor Spencer his reason for withdrawing. Was there any particular reason that you were worried about?
No, not really. I might have some questions afterwards.
Sure, no worries. So I'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Alec Taylor as seconder.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that we have a very small First Nations population according to the last census in Ku-ring-gai. I think this is just a very sensible small step in the right direction towards producing a reconciliation strategy, and I'm strongly in favour.
Any other speakers or questions? Councillor Spencer or anyone else? No? If there is no other speaker or questions, then I'll ask Councillor Greg Taylor to sum up.
I have nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so let's put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And that is Councillors Kay, Pettit, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Ward and Councillor Nye. And against is Councillor Spencer. So I declare that carried. Next up is NM4, Heritage Conservation Areas Interim Heritage. So seeking a motion from someone, Councillor Wheatley. Well, yes, turn on your light. And a seconded by Councillor Lennon. All right, so Councillor Wheatley, you may now speak.
Sure. Being chair of the Heritage Committee, it's devastating to see the impact on the Todds that would have our 23 heritage conservation areas within 400 metres of the 4 stations at Gordon, Killara, Linfield and Roseville. These areas represent a fine collection of primary, federation and interwar housing that have established gardens and original subdivisions. Ku-ring-gai has a strong legacy of heritage fabric, including items and places of style, social and architectural value. Both European and Aboriginal heritage is respected and provides a sense of living, history and physical links to the work and the way of life of earlier generations. In Ku-ring-gai, there are over 950 heritage items. 24 of these are recognised on the New South Wales State Heritage Register, and there are 46 heritage conservation areas covering more than 627 hectares, or 7% of Ku-ring-gai. The heritage of Ku-ring-gai comprises of a rare blend of fine domestic architecture and landscape, of indigenous forests and established gardens. While it's not usual practice to seek an IHO for listed conservation areas, this usual practice assumes areas listing protected heritage significance is no longer within the case of these TOD zonings. The TOD sites in heritage conservation areas are at risk from a blanket upzone that did not treat listed heritage areas any differently to unlisted areas. This leads to great uncertainty about future development and conservation of our identified heritage areas for residents, owners, developers, neighbours, councils and professionals alike. The IHO request, if approved by the Heritage Minister, will give extra protection under the Heritage Act for up to 12 months of these TOD sites and conservation areas. It's a critical time for clear council and government action to protect heritage, at least until council can complete an investigation of the significance of these areas, planning for less impactful options for increased housing. This action will send a message that the destruction of historic buildings and gardens listed in heritage conservation areas cannot be assumed based on the incomplete government planning process to date while council completes its necessary steps. I encourage all councillors to unanimously support this request and ask the New South Wales Minister for Heritage to make an interim heritage order for the land of the 23 heritage conservation areas within Ku-ring-gai.
Councillor Lennon as seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second this as the Deputy Chairman of the Heritage Reference Committee, of which Councillor Wheatley is the Chairwoman, and as a Councillor for Gordon Ward and indeed as a Councillor for this municipality. I feel a legal and moral obligation to support this particular motion. The Interim Heritage Order framework is a means by which councils can put a hold on to development to investigate. It doesn't predict the outcome, but it gives council staff and others time to investigate, to see what is out there. It is predicated upon the idea of a prima facie basis for heritage protection. In this particular case, I suggest that being a heritage conservation area is that prima facie case. We know that they're heritage conservation areas. We know the work was done some years ago when these areas became heritage conservation areas. And in particular, the Interim Heritage Order framework acknowledged that there is a threat. As Councillor Wheatley said, the transport-orientated development set is such a threat. We need to put on a hold as to what might happen to allow the investigations to happen. And as we look around Sydney and the rest of this state, and we see other areas in the same situation. I hope other local councils with heritage conservation areas also take this measure, that they also protect the heritage. And for that reason, I hope that the Minister, in seeing her responsibilities to the people of this state, grant us this interim heritage order. Because our architectural and other cultural heritage is an asset of all the people of New South Wales, not just the residents of Ku-ring-gai. It's an asset of the Premier, Chris Minns, of the Heritage Minister, Premier Sharp, of all the people of this state now into the future. And this is a mechanism by which we can just buy some time, investigate and see what's out there. And I appreciate that there are some people who are a bit uneasy about an interim heritage order on their property. Heritage protection is one of those funny things. We want it on the next door neighbour's house because we want to protect the neighbourhood. We're not so keen on them on our own property because we have confidence in our own judgment and we're trying to control what others do. But this is a case when I think we all want to think about the collective good. And for those people who are concerned, I'm reminded of a Heritage Committee meeting earlier this year when we were told of a sale of a heritage listed property in Ku-ring-gai, and it appears that the sale price actually went up because of heritage protection. So again, I'm not going to preempt the outcome. Investigations need to be done. We need to see what's out there. And that's what the interim heritage order does. But if it turns out that there's heritage out there worthy of protection for the people of the state, I encourage homeowners to embrace it and to value what it is that they own, because it is something special. And it has a value that is monetary, but it's also a value that's beyond that. So I encourage Council to adopt this motion. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Or Councillor Kay?
Okay, I've got a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Watson. Director Watson, would we be able to advise the residents in writing of what our intentions are if this motion is successful? I only say that because it's not regular practice, but I think it's important for the residents to know what we're doing. I'll let you answer that question and I'll continue if that's okay.
The manner in which people are advised of this would be open to council.
Okay, I'd like to then ask, and I'm happy to take your advice, Mr. Watson, with the mover and seconder of the motion, if we could add that council advise the relevant residents in these 23 HCAs of council's intentions and what the council is doing at this point in time. Now, the reasoning I ask that is because we've got developers knocking on residents' doors, we've got trying to negotiate deals, we've got residents requesting lifting or delisting of individual heritage listings, not wanting to be positioned between 6 or 7 stories. I agree, we need to protect our heritage, but we also need to keep our residents informed and be part of this journey.
An answer to the question, they're meant to be succinct questions. So Councillor Wheatley and Councillor Lennon, would you like to amend or incorporate said changes from Councillor Kay? You can talk to each other for a while if you like.
Can I ask a question?
You can ask another question in the interim if they don't have an answer. Councillor Lennon.
Look, I thank Councillor Kay for the question, and I think it's a very good sensitivity. It is something that can be done without any sort of council resolution. I would personally prefer that we take the concept on notice and consult with the relevant director and with staff in the coming days and see what they believe is a prudent thing to do. But I would rather that we don't amend the motion at the moment, if I may. Thank you.
So Councillor Kay, more questions?
Yeah, thank you. I have a question for Director Watson. Director Watson, just pulling this apart and maybe pinpointing one of the Todd stations, Killara. So in Killara, we've got 83% approximately is subject to heritage significance and being in the HCA. So this leaves about 17%. With the target of what is requested by us, potentially by the government, I believe it's approximately 4,500 because we don't have any notification that we could shift to other TODs. What height would we need to actually cover our target? There's 4,500 in the Kalara ward, well, suburb, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's the putting a plane while you're learning to fly motion, Mayoral minute from a couple of months ago, charges the staff with looking at a number of options. One of those options facilitates or allows dwellings to be moved between TODs, but not outside of full nominated TOD stations. It would be very difficult to get anywhere near it would be impossible to get 4,500 dwellings in Kalara and maintain the 83% heritage items.
Do you have more questions, Councillor Kay?
No more questions, but I would like to speak briefly, if I can, on this. I'm actually in support of this motion. I think it's really important for us to protect our heritage areas. I think the heritage areas are very vulnerable in these HCAs. I think in the past, Council has had confidence. As we know in the HCA, some are individually listed and some are not. I'm confident moving forward that we should be looking at what should be individually heritage listed and protect what we have. This may or may not be an appetite for the New South Wales government, which I predict it probably won't, but I think we should be fighting for what we do have in our community and protect our heritage areas, and at least look at what we can do and what ones meet these heritage requirements. I am concerned that it is very difficult in these heritage areas to individually list. I know from previous ones that we have had and accesses to these properties. So I would probably, if I could follow up with a quick question to staff, how they think that this could be done successfully. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't like to speculate on a process in which we won't necessarily have any involvement in the decision made. But we are talking local heritage conservation areas that are in some respects unique in Australia. The approach that's been taken by the notice of motion, in my view, is entirely consistent with Council's broad approach to taking the TODs to task. I think the material that was put before the Heritage Committee demonstrates there is in fact a threat, and there is in fact some basis for at least making an interim heritage order application. It's only to allow additional research to be carried out, and that additional research was in fact, or is in fact, required in the studies alluded to again in the Mayoral minute that I referred to earlier. So it's not as if we weren't going to do an investigation of the HCAs anyway. It gives us time to complete that work and see in what form the HCA should be preserved going forward. So I don't think it's an unreasonable piece of work, and frankly it's the only way to draw attention to an issue that, as a number of councillors have alluded to tonight, hasn't been given due regard. In the same way our legal action hinges off environmental issues not being considered properly, it's fair to say that the heritage issues haven't been considered properly either. I think that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Watson, you're going to have a few questions tonight. If I may, would this not give the Penny Sharp. She's the Minister of Environment and Heritage, the opportunity to run her eyes over what this council is requesting, on what the impacts are on our heritage and environment.
Through you, Mr Mayor, councillors, that is exactly what this type of application would be intended to do, and that's why a large portion of the material we would submit would be photographic, so that you can very quickly come to your own conclusion about what we're talking about. It's very easy to make decisions from an aerial photograph or from the other side of the city, but unless you actually walk among it or look at some photographs of the quality of buildings we're talking about, it's very hard to make an informed decision.
Thank you. So, with that, somebody that I know who I've got quite a deal of respect for mentioned that sunlight is a good disinfectant. So hopefully we might get something out of it rather than what we've got out of both Minister Scully and Premier Minns, who unfortunately don't appear to have run any of these by her. I will be speaking obviously in support of this notice of motion. The IHO was introduced by the state government in order to protect heritage and environment. Unfortunately, the state government's put in a position that we've actually had to use this mechanism to protect ourselves against the state government. The state government is the one that's put us into this position. This council has been, in the entire time, has stated that we are prepared to do our planning, but we want to both respect and keep our heritage and to do planning in a sensible manner. For those reasons, I hope that we get the council support here tonight.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
I'm also speaking in favour of this motion. I think the TOD is an extraordinarily blunt planning mechanism. It will have a profound impact on our amenity, our tree canopy, and our heritage. The impact on Ku-ring-gai, and in particular our heritage areas, appears to be greater than in any of the other TOD stations. People living in heritage listed houses and the HCAs are experiencing extraordinary uncertainty. We need to act with urgency to resolve that uncertainty and to do our best to plan well for Ku-ring-gai. People that own houses in these HCAs purchased knowing they were heritage items. An interim heritage order is just a reaffirmation of something that they already know. Asking for an interim heritage order is an extraordinary response, yes, but it is required because we are in an extraordinary situation.
Are there any other speakers or questions on this matter? Oh, Councillor Ward. I look there and your names, but anyway, okay, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just will keep this brief. Mr Mayor, I'd just like to say it's been never more important than today to do this. And I just wanted, particularly in relation to the TOD, and I'd just like to commend Councillor Wheatley and Councillor Lennon for the work that they have done in this area. And I think it's extremely important for the councillors to support it this evening. Sorry? And Councillor Smith, sorry.
I'm going to speak in support of this motion. Now, look, I've been a councillor for nearly 7 years, and I would have said that in the first 6 years. If I had seen this motion in the first 6 years, I would have laughed at it. I would have thought it was quite unusual. I would not have supported it in the first 6 years. But 2024 is very different to my first 6 years on council. In 2024, we've had an equally, if not more ridiculous proposal from the state government that the transport-oriented development controls of 22-metre height would be introduced to heritage conservation areas, so Federation, Interwar, 22 metres tall. Now, to me, that's not possible. Right? And I've asked various people, you listen to ministers on the radio. I got to ask the minister in person twice. You look at documents on their website, they all claim, yeah, you can do 22 metres in a heritage conservation area. And if you look at the website now, in fact, they point to a document which they claim can demonstrate this. This document is issued by the New South Wales Heritage Office. It's called Design in Context, and it was published in June 2005, so 19 years ago. So they link to this document, right? And they say, look at this thing, 19 years ago, this says we can do 6 stories in HCAs, but if you actually read through this document, it doesn't cover that scenario whatsoever. It doesn't cover 6 stories in interwar Federation-style HCAs. It's talking about very different HCA, well, heritage scenarios. So in reality, what's happening is we've got this completely ridiculous concept that you can do 22 metres in one of our HCAs and that it should be fine. And unfortunately for many people in the public, they just take that on face value. They go, oh, right, well, if the minister says so, then I'm going to believe it. And unfortunately, the media has also fallen into this trap of believing the minister without actually doing the due diligence and looking into what is actually possible. So, look, we've got a quite an unusual request to do an interim heritage order for entire HCAs, but an even more ridiculous situation where we're talking about imposing 22 metres on these HCAs in the first place. And look, it could have been avoided, right? Like, we have approached the minister multiple times in the last 6 months saying, give us time to plan, give us 12 months, give us 9 months, whatever, equivalent to the other councils. In fact, we were the first council to ask for extension. And if that extension had been given to us, we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. We wouldn't even need the legal action. If we weren't even in this situation in the first place, I'm personally of the view that Ku-ring-gai would have developed more housing faster, because we would have had these HCAs saved, but we would have had greater than 6-storey heights in other parts of the Todd precincts. With greater than 6-storey heights in other parts, non-heritage parts of the Todd precincts, we would have attracted development a lot more quickly, we would have built more homes, we would have met our housing targets for all of New South Wales much sooner. So look, this whole situation is nonsensical. I do understand that proposing an interim heritage order for an entire HCA is quite unconventional, but it is allowable by law. If you look at Section 24 of the Heritage Act, which the Labor government introduced in the 1970s, it allows interim heritage orders to be placed not just on buildings, not built just on lot sizes of that, but also on entire precincts. So this is what we're requesting. Now, Ku-ring-gai, we are already looking into different density scenarios for these 4 Todd precincts, different scenarios so that we can preserve our heritage in some parts by having greater density in other parts within the same precincts. That work will come to the public in October and November this year. Everyone will have the opportunity to have a say, and the council at this rate will make a decision in February next year. So all this interim heritage order asks for is the opportunity to delay development just for the time being, allow us to protect our heritage conservation areas for the time being until council can make a proper decision in February as to what we will do to save our heritage. Let's make the planning minister actually do a bit of work. She does get paid $160,000 per year more than most of her colleagues. Let's make her prove that she is actually working for it. Let's make her demonstrate that she is the Minister for Heritage. So I'd encourage everyone to support this. Next up is Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. I actually wasn't planning to say anything, but I have to say a few things after that speech of yours. Otherwise, you might say, I'm not putting in my worth, right? So I've got to earn my $2 for tonight. So my position has not changed. It's been the same regarding torts, legal action, and so on. And in fact, my prediction that legal action will have no impact on the implementation of torts came true. Torts was implemented on the 3rd of July. Sorry, June.
3rd of May.
May, I'm sorry, yes. 3rd of May. Jeez, it's a few months ago. sorry, 3rd of May, and it's been implemented at the 4 stations as mentioned. Now, and it is because I feel that we had the opportunity to sit down with the minister and we chose legal action. Now, with regards to blanket listing, my position remains the same. From 2018, I believe it is unjust and unfair, what Councillor Kay proposed earlier was quite interesting, to write to all those affected by this interim IHO and to see what they have to say. And what's really interesting from that is that the propounders of this motion says no, they don't want to put this in the motion. Well, if their argument is correct, that the majority or overwhelming number of residents would want to save the heritage and so on, then they shouldn't be afraid to write to those people who are affected by HCA.
Point of order.
Can we pause the timer at 2 minutes 55? Or?
Thank you. I think Councillor Spencer is scrambling here at the moment. Is scrambling in relation to literally talking about parts that the 2 councillors that actually put it forward. That's not even on the table at the moment, so I don't even know why we're discussing that.
So, just clarify.
In regards to Councillor Kay's position she put
with
forward.
Points of order, you raise it if you, according to 15.1, if you believe that there has been a breach of the code. So, are you able to say what exactly Councillor Spencer is breaching?
I think he's breaching his questioning on something that's already been determined, which is, sorry, the 2 councillors that have put it forward. And I just don't think, and he's talking about something that is not part of this motion. So we should be talking about this motion, not about what was proposed in the motion. So I'm happy for you to bring out whatever clause you think that is, but I'm sure there should be a clause.
Look who's
Okay,
breaching now.
my answer to that is, technically, I do believe that Councillor Spencer is breaching if you put it in that way. However, tonight we've breached it many, many times, and I've allowed many other councillors to go on slight tangents. And on this occasion, I'm okay with Councillor Spencer going on a tangent.
Thank you. So there's a distinction between breaching the code of conduct and breaching someone's speech, right? There's no rule against that. So anyway, coming back to this, I have to vote against it because it brings about uncertainty to the residents. 1 minute, they are unsure whether they're going to be affected by torts or not. And then next minute, they're told, don't worry, we have a legal action, we're going to stop torts, we're going to overturn torts. And then that didn't work. And then suddenly someone made an announcement that some shadow minister was going to put up a motion to stop and undo torts, and that again didn't happen. And then now we want to put an interim order, a blanket listing on all those properties. So imagine this is someone's property, someone's home. It is their savings, their nest egg, whatever you want to call it, right? And now they feel that, all right, I can sell it for a certain amount of money, it's worth so much. And suddenly there's IHO, and then the price suddenly goes down. They're very uncertain because he has to go to the minister, and then the minister will decide. And then if the investigation will probably take a year, I think, I don't know, to identify each of them, probably take a year. And during that time, there's a lot of uncertainty. I don't think it is good. I'm not referring to governance. I don't think it is good government to bring about uncertainty to its constituents. The constituents want certainty, whether it is yes or a no, whether it is a tort or no tort, where the tort's going to be and so on. It must be decisive. But at the moment, it is this and that, and then suddenly another motion come out, IHO and so on. And therefore, I don't think it is fair for the constituents. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Commonara Ward, Councillor Pettit.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the Commonara candidates as well, down the back there as well too. It's a bit of a Commonara evening here, ladies and gentlemen. I think with Councillor Kay, you were trying to, how would you say, get the process in a certain sequence, where we were consulting the residences in all HCAs whether they felt that was appropriate, or they were going to be aware this was going to be happening. And I think this ran into Councillor Spencer's comments as well too. If we ask them, and the overwhelming majority said, yay, let's go for it, then we've actually been given a mandate by those residents within those HCAs to proceed with the blanket scenario. So I'll move an amendment. Yes, I'm probably going to hear some oh gods there from Councillor Wheatley. I don't think he's going to save you tonight, dear. It's okay. Right. That council survey all residents within the 23 HCAs and gather feedback whether they feel a blanket IHO for their HCA is appropriate or not.
So seconded by Councillor Spencer. So do we have it documented here that council survey all residences
and report back once the survey is complete.
Time frame.
Let's wait for the wording to be finalised on the screen before we then. So, Councillor Pettit, can you confirm whether this is the wording you want? And do you want residents as in a TS or CE?
Yeah, along those lines, I think if council staff are happy with the intentions of that.
Just clarification, Councillor Pettit. Do you mean the 23 HCAs or only those which are from the 23 which are within the Todd precinct? The Todd precinct. Yeah, but some have like part of it within the Todd and the rest of it outside the Todd. So yeah, I know that. But is this asking to survey the 23 HCAs or those residences which are within the Todd from the 23 HCAs? Because there's a distinct difference.
Okay, so I'm not normally liking to do amendments on the fly, which you can all appreciate. And I can see those smiles there, Councillor Whitley, that you're so happy with this opportunity. Obviously, we want to get the feedback from the residents that are in the 23 HCAs that we've been talking about. Okay.
What about within the 23 HCAs and the Todd?
And the Todd, yep.
Precincts.
And Todd precincts, yep.
Yep, okay.
That might clarify it.
Right, Councillor Pettit, as mover of this amendment, would you like to speak to the amendment?
I will, why not? As I say, get your money's worth while you're up here. Now, it's important, we always talk about consultation, don't we? The council should be big on consulting. You know, this is a massive thing that we are proposing. The councillors are proposing. Normally we like to get feedback from our residents whether they feel this is appropriate or not. And it wouldn't surprise me if the majority then say, yes, this is a good idea. But I think they'd appreciate being asked whether they feel it is a good idea. It doesn't hurt to actually ask the general population what they think of it. And if it comes back and they say, no, it's not a good idea, fair enough. But if they say, yes, it is, good, then we can give them a bit of a mandate. So I know most people won't vote for the amendment anyway because it's possibly too hard to do, but it's not a bad idea. We always talk about transparency, consultation. Just let the people know what is potentially coming to their area, or to their street, or to their neighbour. so they can have discussions. I want to talk to their neighbours about it. So what do you think? Is it a good idea? If you've got a heritage property, next year you might not know much about it and might actually consult with your neighbour and say, how has that affected you? Has it been a good idea? Are you pleased with it? Has it improved your property values? As was mentioned by others. You know, where you actually bring the community along. That's all this is. But once you've done that survey and it's positive, Councillor Smith and Co, away you go. There you go.
Councillor Spencer as the seconder.
Oh, 100%. I agree. Everything he said.
Councillor Smith.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question through to you to Councillor Pettit?
Sure, as long as it's succinct with that.
That's great. Councillor Pettit, did you receive a text message from Scully this morning proposing to put this up as because this is preposterous, it goes against our legal action that you've supported in the past? I think that what we put forward in this IAHO is in the vein of the legal action that this council, with you on it, sorry, you answered my question, didn't you? Or did you receive a text? Sorry.
So 9.17, councillors must put questions directly, succinctly, respectfully, and without argument. And I interpret without argument as in without trying to advance your own point.
Happy to answer that. Councillor Smith, can you give me the Minister's number? Because I actually don't have it.
I don't actually, but I thought you may. So, in any case, thank you for your answer. As I was saying there before, I believe that this IHO is in the vein of our legal action, is only in support of what we're currently doing. All the councillors here this evening, I think other than Councillor Kay, has actually supported the legal action against the New South Wales State Government. This, what we are doing, is giving us the opportunity to use that with our legal action. If any councillor here this evening was to then back out of that, that may be seen as renege or change of mind, whatever we're going to use this evening. I think it's important that if we do not move on this quickly, we are going to lose the opportunity, and our residents that we've already said that what we're going to do, we're going to lose their faith that we're not doing everything we can possibly do here this evening. So for those reasons, I would encourage everybody, every councillor here tonight to reject this, as because I think it's very important that we send a very succinct message to the state government that we're on track and we're going to continue. Thank you.
Councillor Greg Taylor.
I have a very succinct and serious question. The business papers have been out in the public for 2 weeks now, and I haven't received any feedback from any residents against this notice of motion. I'm just wondering if any staff or any councillors have received any feedback against this. Thank you.
Can I, just extending on that, has there been any feedback on this on Ku-ring-gai, whatever, like Facebook groups, that is negative? There is, okay. Next up is, Councillor Spencer.
I actually have received feedback from people from your ward, actually.
Okay, cool.
And I think I text you that message.
I don't actually recall that, but I'll check out my text messages. Councillor Lennon is next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, we're elected to govern, and seeking interim heritage orders over a heritage conservation area is not actually totally out of left field. As has been intimated, this has been in social media, it's been in the business papers for 2 weeks. I've heard no negative comments. And I think all of us have received some messages from residents in support of what we're doing here. This is totally consistent with everything we've said, has been said so often. Through the Heritage Reference Committee, we have previously sought interim heritage orders in the past. We don't go and survey. There's no point. This is about an interim measure to deal with a difficult situation, a pressing situation where we need to investigate heritage. To go out serving residents on something that is so self-evident and so natural as what we're doing here, I think it's just wasting time and money. There's all sorts of decisions we as a council make without going to the residents for effectively a plebiscite or referendum on any decision. And this is not a surprising decision. I suspect that our residents will be more annoyed about such a survey and the delays implicit in it than they would be at all concerned about what we're doing. Any residents objecting have had a couple of weeks to let us know, and none have said anything to me. It's only been positive feedback. This is exactly what all those residents who support what we're doing on the legal action, and we know from the survey that more than 2/3 of the residents do support what we're doing there. This is consistent with everything else we do. We don't need to keep going back to residents for a plebiscite every time we do anything. We're elected to govern. This is governing. This is discharging our responsibilities under the law to the residents of this municipality. Thank you.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
I regularly talk to lots of residents in my ward, specifically about this issue, the issue of the impact of the TOD on heritage listed items and our heritage conservation areas. I hear a wide range of views, including occasionally somebody who would like to sell their house at a great profit as a result of the TOD. But universally I hear that people love the area, they love the amenity of our community, they love the heritage, universally love the heritage. I hear that all the time. However, I would like to hear it systematically. I don't feel the need to support this amendment, but I believe we've already empowered the General Manager through various motions this year to perform surveys and listen to the community. I think we did one in, I believe, January, and I think it's probably time to do another one. I don't think we need a motion to do that. I don't think we should second guess the interim heritage order, so I'm speaking against this amendment.
Are there any other speakers on this amendment, which we started about 10 minutes ago? If not, let's put it to a vote. So all those in support of having this amendment become the motion, please raise your hand. And that is, Councillors Spencer and Pettit. And all those against are 8 other councillors. So we come back to the original motion, and on the original motion, everyone has spoken except for Councillor Greg Taylor. Just wondering, Councillor Greg Taylor, do you want to speak to the original motion? No, not required. Okay. Councillor Pettit, question.
I do indeed, through you probably, Mr. Mayor. When we had 69 Park Avenue, was that resident very happy that we whacked an IHL on him to the relevant director?
Just clarification, do you mean Kissing Point Road?
69 Kissing Point Road and also Park Avenue in Kimble. To the park. Park Crescent.
So, Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the answer to that question would be not very.
Would you like to ask more questions? Otherwise, we will ask. So, Councillor Wheatley, do you want to sum up or delegate?
I think we've had enough debate on this. I don't think anyone needs to hear anything further. Okay.
Then let us put this to a vote. All those in favour of the original motion, it is Councillors K. Pettit, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, A. Taylor, G. Taylor, Ward and I. Against is Councillor Spencer. So I declare that carried. Next up is NM6, Multicultural Festival and Multicultural Inclusion Plan. So I seek a mover.
I would like to move the motion as printed.
So moved by Councillor Alec Taylor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Wheatley raised her hand. So Councillor Alec Taylor, would you like to speak to this?
No, thank you.
All right, Councillor Wheatley. Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are 2 aspects to the decision. The first is money. I suggest that at any opportunity that we can get any other level of government, any other party to pay for what we do, we should do it. And the motions passed actually increased the funding for what we were doing by $30,000 while reducing the cost to council. So I suggest we should be doing that. The second aspect, of course, is the nature of the festival and the plan itself. And I know that after the last council meeting, Mr. Mayor, you quite accurately, I think, commented on social media that the Multicultural Festival would be like the Lunar Festival, only bigger. And I think that's right. I think that's what we expect. We expect the Multicultural Festival to celebrate Chinese, Korean and Vietnamese cultures, and that's a wonderful thing. I know Councillor Ward will ensure that it celebrates Indian culture, and I look forward to that. We expect the festival to celebrate cultures all over Asia. We will not be at all surprised to see African, Arabic, South Pacific cultures, and that's a good thing. Whether the multiculturalism includes Indigenous cultures is probably a matter of semantics, but we're certainly, I think, expecting to have a welcome or acknowledgement of country. A smoking ceremony will not surprise us. That's all what we expect to see. What we do not expect at a multicultural festival is flamenco dancing or Morris dancing. We expect to see Chinese, Korean and Vietnamese costumes. We don't expect to see German, Czech and Polish costumes. We have an Irish dancing school in this municipality and they do wonderful work, and yet we confine Irish dancing to St Patrick's Day and the pubs. There's a lot of culture up there that I think is worth celebrating, and all I was looking to do with the additional words is say, let's remember what else is out there. Last month, a few of us, I know Councillor Ward and Mr Mayor and I attended a Refugee Week event in which a young Ukrainian lad sang. Now, Vladimir Putin has put Ukraine at the forefront of refugee thinking in the world at the moment, but possibly not at the forefront of multiculturalism thinking. And I wonder, wouldn't it be nice to have that Ukrainian lad singing at the Multicultural Festival? Now, I don't know whether or not he will, and I don't know what will happen. But in other cases, we have said that we will specifically make clear that people are welcome who don't always feel welcome. And at the moment, we're not thinking about a lot of cultures. I've spoken in the past of Councillor Ward's Indian National Day event that I attended a couple of years ago, and I enjoyed it. It was a great privilege to be there, and thank you for that. I remember talking to a woman there who described herself as being Anglo and sharing my pleasure at being at the event. She remarked about our own failure to celebrate our cultures and to share that our cultures get lost in either other people's cultures, money, or consumption, or anything other than culture. She actually feared that there might be some backlash in the future when people are saying, well, hang on, how about our culture? How about sharing it? And look, there may well be people who aren't particularly interested in seeing Morris dancing, in tucking into some haggis or a can of urn brew, and that's fine. But I tell you, I've really enjoyed the Korean dancing and the costumes I've seen from there. I've really enjoyed the multicultural events from other parts of the world that I've experienced. And I think it would be nice if we can encourage all the people with all the cultures, including my own, to get out there and celebrate it. And I think it's a little bit sad that some people I like and respect a great deal are so coy with our cultures. You know, we cower in the shadows, afraid of our own shadows, afraid of putting forward our heritage and our cultures. And I think that's really sad. I think we should be like everyone else. They're really sensitive. They've got self-respect. It's a good thing. So I would like to see all the cultures of the world celebrated. And the words that we had in the motion last month simply emphasised what technically is not necessary to be said. And we often say things aren't necessary to be said. But at times we just want to make it clear, because at the moment we're just not seeing Ukrainian and German and Czech and Irish and Scottish and Italian and Spanish and cultures like that at multicultural events. We're not seeing bush dancing. We're not seeing Canberra. We're not seeing traditional Australian cultures. And I would have thought, let's all get it together and share it. So I appreciate the sensitivity to the intention and the good purposes behind the decision, but I'll vote against it.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
Question through you, Mr Mayor, to, I believe, the Director of Community. Was there ever any intent with the festival or plan to exclude any cultures such as Ukrainian singing or Irish dancing?
Mr Mayor and councillors, no, there wasn't. But what I could say is now we have a multicultural committee. We have the capacity now to tap into a lot of other cultures that we perhaps didn't have before. So what I would say is, and this committee will be an integral part of planning this festival, and that will allow us to use a lot of other cultures that we probably wouldn't have tapped into before.
Thank you. May I now speak briefly to the motion? We need to welcome and include those who don't usually feel as welcome and included. I think that's part of what we're doing here with the Multicultural Festival and Plan. However, I believe the original intent of recommendation C, which we've dropped through this rescission, was to include all cultures. The purpose of the festival and multicultural plan is to foster inclusivity and include all cultures. It's implicit, and therefore the recommendation is truly redundant. Let's get on and vote for this.
Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment. And there's some more groans from councillors. It's always good. Sorry, getting my money's worth once again. We know it was you, councillor, we don't groan. And I'd like to up it to $150,000 and seek a second on.
Is there Councillor Spencer seconds it? Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Now, the reasons for upping this to 150, if you think about our medieval fair, which was extremely successful, we invested probably over $100,000 would have been our last effort. I'm getting nods from Director Bevan, so she's concurring 100. That's for a weekend. Now, a multicultural festival doesn't have to be one day. It can be multiple days, it can be multiple events. Now, a number of us attended the destination conference over at Manly, and when we heard there how much Canterbury Bankstown invest in their Ramadan nights, and given that Ramadan nights runs for approximately a month, they invest over $3 million in this particular event. That is serious coinage, councillors. But the benefits of that, it brings so many people from across the city to Lakemba. So not only is it promoting that area, it is promoting the whole council to the entire Sydney community. It attracts people from far and wide. They come to Lakemba, spend their money, learn about the culture, learn about the food. We are embracing here multiculturalism here in Ku-ring-gai. So if we're going to do it, let's do it decently. 50 grand? That doesn't sound like we're that serious. You know, we've upped our investment in our arts with the KPO and MSTYP. We should be investing in our various cultures within Ku-ring-gai and showcasing them over more than just tokenism events. We need to have some serious bickies behind it to do it right and to actually attract people from not just Ku-ring-gai but further afield. We've been put on events, we want events to be well known. We need to have a showcase event in Ku-ring-gai. Ku-ring-gai was known for its medieval fair. That would attract people from across the country. Unfortunately, we don't have that opportunity now, but perhaps this multicultural festival with some good dollars behind it can be our showcase event. I'm sure Director Bevan would like to have that big ticket item to put in our annual report saying this is our big event that we do. So 150 is not too hard. We can find the money to do it properly. We found extra money for our grants this evening. We found a lot of money for our legal cases. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars there. And we found lots and lots of money for our little bus stop signage ads protesting against the state government without a blink of an eye. So surely we can come up with 150, no problem. Remember how much in rates we actually get in? $150,000, what's that? A little over $1 per resident. surely we can afford that. $1. Everybody here would have $1 coin, wouldn't they? Wouldn't be that hard. You know, we want to be seen as a council that's prepared to put our money where our mouth is. So I hope councillors will support a decent amount and have actually a wonderful multicultural festival over multiple days. Thank you.
So Councillor Spencer as the seconder.
Yes, as a second. Well, I hope this time he would vote for something that he is speaking for or against, right? I mean, this is our second last meeting. A little bit of humor. No, Mr. Flip Flop. A point of order.
Definitely point of order. I don't tend to wear flip flops out up too often.
Right, please continue.
Oh, he didn't ask me to retreat. I'll continue. No, but this time I agree with him. So when we attend the citizenship ceremony, how many nations do we usually have? Ballpark?
About 20.
20, 30. So how many nations, different nations we have in Ku-ring-gai, where they come from? Not just on Citizenship Day.
Mr. Mayor and councillors, you mean all up how many nations? There'd be, 50, 60? There'd be
Yeah,
there's
thereabouts,
lots.
I think.
Yeah, there's a high representation of
Yeah.
cultural mix.
I think once you said it was like 52 or something, I can't remember. But the point is this, that 150,000, or rather 50,000, the original motion, 50,000 for 50 nations, for instance, multicultural, that's $1,000 each. It's really nothing. Food and wine, how much are we giving to that? 100,000? The food and wine festival, how much are we?
Mr. Mayor and councillors, that was 8,000.
6,000?
6,008, yeah.
Which one was the one that we gave? Well, he said that we gave something 100,000. Never mind. Scratch that. Sorry. So anyway, I'm just supporting his motion. Hopefully, he would vote for his own amendment. Thank you.
So Councillor Kay.
My turn. I have got a question for, actually a question and a comment for Councillor Pettit. Councillor Pettit, I'm not sure if you're aware, but at the last council meeting, 50K was not agreed to. It was proposed and it was, people thought that that was clearly quite excessive. I did not. I agreed to the 50K, but it's not how it turned out. I'm just asking if I can make a change with your point A, and that we have towards multicultural festivals rather than one. I think it's quite grandiose for 150K, and I don't know if we have the resources just to do the one, but I'm happy to support 150K towards numerous multicultural festivals.
I think the simple question was, did you want an S on the end of festival? And quite happy to have an S on the end of festivals, many multiples thereof.
Yeah. Is the seconder, Councillor Spencer, willing to take and observe? Thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to say that I feel as though a festival can have multiple events. So you could have one festival with multiple events. You could have multiple festivals with multiple events. But anyway, Councillor Smith, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask a question through you to Director of Community, Director Bevan. Just in relation to the $50,000 that was proposed, can you just advise me how we came up with that figure and that if that was going to be something you would think would be adequate to do what we were proposing? Thank you.
Oh, Mr Mayor and councillors, I was actually on leave when this was discussed at the last council meeting. However, what I would say is that the Multicultural Advisory Committee put in for a grant to run a festival, and that was in the vicinity, I think it was between 50 and 80,000 or something like that, and that was not successful. So that could be where that 50,000 was landed upon, unless Ms Leaf might have to help us here as well.
That would be great, thank you.
So Ms Leaf will now answer.
Yep, through you, Mr Mayor and councillors. So the 50,000 was come up with from the Ride Festival and the Willoughby Festival. So that was about, I think, and I might get this wrong, but I think Ride spent 70,000, I think Willoughby 50,000. So it was a similar type of, a council area with a similar type of event.
Thank you very much. I normally don't like speaking against handing money out. But in this particular case here, I think under the conditions with what this council has faced financially, the decisions it's got to make forward, I think what was originally proposed in the notice of motion of the 50,000 is adequate to do what we need to do as a council. And I think it shows that we've got great support. So for those reasons, I'll be speaking against this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it was at the last meeting that you in a Mayoral minute quite rightly wrote of the need for us to be careful about spending money. In that Mayoral minute you did acknowledge $50,000 for this. The idea that we would just suddenly dispense another $100,000 without any sense of what the purpose of it was and where it's going, I think is extraordinarily reckless and irresponsible. This is ratepayers' money, and it is still $100,000. And every cent that we have spent on court cases against the state government, on the bus shelter advertisements, has been money that was applied to a very clear purpose, with clear notice to the residents that were dealing with it at a council meeting. There was something very upfront about what we're doing in the past. This is at a whim, this is out of the blue, and $100,000 is a lot of money just to hand out without knowing what exactly it is we're going to be spending $100,000 on. We are dealing with other people's money. Responsible financial stewardship is treating it like ours in the most cautious and prudential way. And I do not believe we should be, at a whim, dispensing $100,000. So I oppose this amendment. Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, as the chair of the Multicultural Committee, I would love to have that 150,000. However, I don't think it would be prudent to do that, simply because the staff have gone out and done the research. They have compared with other councils, like market councils who host such events, and that is the amount that they came up with. I'm happy that they went out and did the work, and that they came out with a figure that I believe is fair and reasonable for a festival that we will be piloting for the first time. So I thank Councillor Pettit for his generosity, but I think what we have with the 50,000, I'd be very happy with. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer.
Oh yes, just a question to Councillor Lennon. Your speech is really, it struck a chord. Like you were saying, it's people's money and so on. We need to tell the people what we're spending on, and the people knew that we were spending on legal action against the government and advertising. Did we ever tell any of our residents how much we spent? Did we ask for their approval?
Well, the business papers for each meeting made it fairly clear what we were spending the money on. It had a clear purpose.
So it's a simple question, how much money did we tell them?
We told them what we're spending the money on. It had a purpose, it was thought through, and we have never, to my knowledge, spent a cent on legal cases or anything else we didn't have to spend. We haven't wasted money on any of our legal actions, to my knowledge, ever.
Arguing.
You asked him a question, he
Yeah,
answered it.
Yeah, you asked a
Right.
question, I answered.
Yeah. So I'm going to speak against this amendment now. Look, just to give some history, right? Like, let's talk about the legal action, right? Like, from my perspective, we spend money on legal action, but the intent is that we save tens of millions of ratepayer funds from cost savings of not having to deal with much more complex procurement processes further down the line. So it is money well spent. I would any day spend thousands in order to save millions. Now, in terms of what do we do with an extra 100,000? Well, look, you could spend it on multiple events for a festival, or you could spend it on perhaps some footpaths and Commonara Ward or Rumble Ward, which I'm totally open to as well. So that's something that we just have to trade up, right? Like every 100,000 we spend towards this has to be taken out of something else. What is that? I don't know. It might be the footpaths. And when the residents come up to us election time, as it may be, and say, where's our footpaths? Then we'll say, oh, we actually spent it all on, whatever it is. Now, by way of comparison, medieval fair, in 2017, we spent 27,000 on a medieval fair, right? And it was successful, we loved it. And then for whatever reason, the following year, 2018, we decided to spend nearly 10 times the amount, 258,000 on a medieval fair. Well, I don't know what we were doing, but we went all nuts. And I don't know what the line of thought or whatever was, but at least it was ramped up. So we started with something small, we tested the idea, we thought if it was working or not. And if it was working, we decided to invest more into it the following year. And I'm open to that idea for this medieval multicultural festival idea as well, right? Like whether it's 50, 150, whatever it is, perhaps 50 is a better starting point. And if it was extremely successful, we got a great rate of return, we could spend more the following year. However, I do note that for this coming financial year, we've already upped what was 50,000 on hardships to 150,000 from the same councillor, and we did spend 100,000 on domestic violence support. So for every additional 100 we throw here or there, it means 100,000 less on footpaths. I'm open to 50 to sort of wrap it up. Maybe it is 150,000 the following year. I don't know. But let's just test the idea first. On that basis, I would be speaking against 150,000. Not that I'm against multicultural festivals, but because I'm open to spending that extra 100,000 on footpaths somewhere up north. And I'd encourage others to support that idea. Are there any other speakers? If not, we will vote on whether this amendment becomes the motion 17 minutes after it was raised. So all those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hands. So that's councillors Kay and Pettit. Those against the amendment are councillors Spencer, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, A. Taylor, G. Taylor, Ward and Nye. So that amendment is not successful. We are back to the original motion. The original motion, we've had A. Taylor and Lennon speak on it. Now we've got Councillor Pettit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, it'll be interesting conversations that Councillor Ward will have with the Multicultural Committee when they have the opportunity of getting 150 and going back to 50. And the two most salient words up there is up to. Doesn't mean you actually have to spend 150. You might have only spent 50 or 75. But obviously cutting that option off. 2 words, they're up to, not mandatory. Perhaps we should have bolded that, underlined it, big, 24 point, something like that. So it's up. NIMBY and YIMBY, that sort of thing. There's little differences. So
might as well make it 1.5 million. Yeah.
That's right. And when we're talking about $100,000 for a footpath, that will probably get you from here to the wall, Really, it's not 100,000 out of a $1.5 million budget of new footpaths, not that much. Having said that, if I had been here at the last meeting, but unfortunately my wife has still been recovering from bowel cancer, I would have definitely voted against that paltry amount of 15 to whatever it was. Again, just because other councils spend X amount, doesn't mean we have to do exactly the same. You know, when we took the multi-medieval fair on, we didn't know how well it would go. We invested a lot of money in it. We know how well our multicultural events go. Chinese New Year, Hanukkah on the Green, we know they go well. So we don't need to try and see if it will be successful. We know it will be successful from what we've already done. So that's why 150 was there, because we are good at putting on these events. We have wonderful council staff that can do them. We don't have a huge amount of staff, but they do an extraordinarily good job. Having 150 gave you that opportunity to good bang for your buck. 50 manana.
So we've had Councillor A. Taylor, you've spoken to this motion before. Do you have a question or? No, okay. No other speakers. I'll ask Councillor A. Taylor to sum up.
Gee willikers, we've spent a long time on this one. I have nothing further to add.
All right then, let's put this to a vote. All in favour, please raise your hands, and that is Councillors Kay, Spencer, Pettet, Smith, Wheatley, A. Taylor, G. Taylor, Ward and I, and against is Councillor Lennon, so I declare that carried. Now, we are up to business without notice. Is there any business without notice subject to clause 9.3 of the Code of Meeting Practice? No. We're up to questions with notice, and there is one. Can I ask the General Manager or relevant Director to talk to question with notice?
Mr. Mayor, it is printed in the business paper, the response.
All right, thank you. So there are no inspections or confidential matters. So there being no further business, I would like to thank councillors and staff. I'd also especially thank the councillors for being civil to each other tonight, which was great. I would also like to thank members of the public for their attendance. The webcast of this meeting will be available on the website, and minutes will be published within the next 2 working days. I declare the meeting closed at 10:02 p.m.